"You're coming with me." The Duke saw the peasant girl freezing on the bench and took her home. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. Snow had a way of swallowing sound. All evening the city had grown quieter, as if the streets themselves were tired. By the time the bells marked the late hour, only the crunch of the occasional step broke the thick silence. The square near the old cathedral was almost empty now. Only a few lamps burned, pale circles of light in a sea of white. Anya Petrova sat on a wooden bench under one of those lamps. At first, she told herself she would rest only a moment, just long enough to feel her legs again, just long enough to stop the trembling that had taken her the whole day in its teeth. Only a moment, she whispered into the scarf pressed to her mouth. Her breath turned to a small cloud and vanished. Her fingers no longer felt like fingers. They were stiff sticks at the ends of her arms. She tucked them under her arms and tried to curl in on herself, but the bench was hard and the wood was bitterly cold. She had no proper coat, only a worn shawl the color of dirty snow and a thin dress that had once been blue. The wind slipped under everything she wore, like it had spite of its own. She lifted her head and looked around. The square had changed with the dark. In daylight there were carts and shouting, children running, old women arguing over bread. Now there was only snow and stone and the dim shapes of buildings. A cab rolled by at the far end, its lanterns swinging. She watched it as if it could somehow carry her just by looking. "If I can make it back," she murmured. "If I can reach the house again, they will not throw me out in this cold. Not tonight." But she knew they would. She had heard the landlady's voice, sharp as frost. "You bring trouble, girl, men asking after you. I do not need such things under my roof." Anya closed her eyes. Men asking. Voices at the back door of the tavern. Names that were not meant for her ears. A laugh that had made her skin crawl. She pushed the thoughts away. Even her fear felt dull now. Heavy, like the snow gathering on her skirt. A sound came from somewhere behind her. Footsteps, perhaps. Or just the wind playing tricks with the snow. She did not turn. She had no strength for more fear. "Just a moment," she told herself again. Then up, then walk. Her body did not obey. The cold had become something thick around her, like a blanket soaked in ice. Her eyelids felt too heavy. It was so much easier to let the weight pull them down. She did not notice that some streets away, a pair of black horses was moving at a steady trot, drawing a dark sleigh through the night. Inside the sleigh, Mikhail Volkov sat with his arms folded and his eyes on the small window before him. The glass was fogged at the corners. The lamps outside made fleeting rings of light pass across his face as they moved. The city at night had its own smell, a mix of smoke, snow, and faint cooking fires. It seeped even through the closed carriage. Across from him, his steward, Nikolai, sat straight-backed, his gloved hands resting on his knees. "You should have lodged near the palace tonight, Your Grace," Nikolai said. "The council met long. It will be past midnight by the time we reach home." Mikhail did not answer at once. He had the habit of silence, of letting words die before they were spoken. The years since his wife's passing had trained him in that. "The council chambers are colder than the road," he said at last, "and I prefer my own walls." "There is talk," Nikolai added carefully, "that His Imperial Highness may call more such meetings. They value your judgment." Mikhail's mouth curved slightly. The expression did not quite become a smile. "Or they value a man who does not speak more than he must," he said. "It makes it easier for others to hear their own voices." Nikolai allowed himself a small breath that might have been a laugh. "As you say, Your Grace." The horses turned into the square, their hooves muffled in the snow. The sleigh moved more slowly here, the driver wary of the drifts forming along the edges. Mikhail stared absently at the lampposts as they slid by, their light making brief halos in the dark. His mind, out of habit, turned back to the council, to names, documents, the careful weighing of loyalties and petitions. He did not look for anything out of the ordinary in the square. He did not expect it, yet his gaze caught on a shape. At first it was only a darker patch against the white, a small rise at the edge of the lamp's circle. The sleigh rolled on a few yards. Then something in his chest stirred, a faint prickle, as if some quiet inner voice had said, "Look again." He leaned closer to the window. "Stop," he said, before he had quite decided to say it. The driver heard his voice through the small opening and pulled the reins at once. The horses slowed, snorted, stamped. The sleigh came to a halt. "Your Grace?" Nikolai asked. Mikhail did not answer. He pushed open the door and stepped down into the snow. The wind met him like a living thing, reaching icy fingers into his collar. His boots sank, crunching softly. He crossed the space between the sleigh and the lamp, his breath making brief clouds. The figure on the bench was still. A girl, he saw now. Not much more than that at first. Her hair was bound back in a rough braid, streaked with snow. Her head had fallen forward, her face half hidden by a thin scarf. Her hands were bare where they clutched at her shawl. She did not move. Mikhail's chest tightened in a strange, unwelcome way. He spoke once, sharply, as he might to someone asleep in a chair. "Girl." Nothing. He stepped closer and reached out. His hand hovered for a heartbeat over her shoulder. For a moment he hesitated, the habits of a lifetime whispering about distance, propriety, lines between his world and all others. Then the wind rose and pushed a gust of snow against her cheek. She did not flinch. He set his hand on her shoulder. Her body felt light and rigid like a bundle of sticks. Under his glove he could feel the thinness of her shawl, the dampness of the fabric. "Girl," he said again. "Wake." Her head lolled slightly, but her lashes did not lift. Nikolai came up behind him, his own coat flapping in the wind. "Your Grace, we should go," he said quietly. "It is dangerous to stand in the open. If she is already—" "She is not dead," Mikhail said. He did not know how he knew it, but he did. There was something, a faint resistance under his hand, a tiny tremor. He moved his hand to her cheek, brushing away the snow with his knuckles. Her skin was like marble. But when his glove passed close to her lips, he felt it. The lightest whisper of breath, so shallow it could have been his imagination. He straightened, the decision already made somewhere inside him. "Bring a blanket from the sleigh," he said. Nikolai stared. "Your Grace." "Now, Nikolai." The man turned at once and hurried back, boots slipping slightly. Mikhail watched the girl more closely. Her lips were pale, cracked. Her clothes, though he did not study them in detail, were plainly inadequate for this weather. There was a smudge of soot along one side of her face, as if she had been working near a stove. How long had she been sitting here? What had driven her to leave whatever shelter she had found elsewhere? Questions pressed at him, but none of them mattered while her breath was still so faint. Nikolai returned with a heavy wool blanket. Mikhail took it without a word. He wrapped it around her shoulders, tucking it close, careful as if she might break. Her head tipped slightly toward his hand at the movement. Her lips parted. A weak, hoarse sound came out. Not a word, exactly. A fragment. "No." Mikhail leaned closer. "What?" he asked. "What is it?" Her eyes fluttered. For an instant, grey irises showed beneath heavy lids. They looked unfocused, as if she were seeing something far away. "They will find me," she whispered. "I did not tell." "I did not." Her voice broke off. Her head sagged again. Mikhail frowned. The words meant nothing to him. Delirium, perhaps. Fever. He did not waste more time. "Help me lift her," he said. "Your Grace, the palace will not like it," Nikolai murmured, even as he stepped in to obey. "The staff will talk. A girl from the street." "She will not survive the night here," Mikhail said flatly, "and I will not leave her to die on a bench like a stray dog." Nikolai shut his mouth. Together they eased the girl up. She was lighter than she looked. Her body did not resist. Her head fell against Mikhail's chest, her hair brushing his chin with a faint scent of smoke and cold. The driver had climbed down to see what was happening. His eyes widened at the sight. "Your Grace?" "Open the door," Mikhail ordered. "We are taking her with us." The driver hesitated only a heartbeat, then hurried to pull the sleigh door wider. Mikhail stepped forward with his burden. The girl's feet dragged in the snow, leaving two thin lines. Inside the sleigh, the air felt almost warm compared to the square. They laid her along the seat, tucking her into the blanket as best they could. Nikolai piled his own outer cloak over her. "What shall I tell the housekeeper?" Nikolai asked softly as he settled back into his place. "She will want to know what explanation to give." "That is her business," Mikhail said. "Drive," he added to the man outside. The sleigh lurched into motion. The girl's head bounced slightly with the movement. Mikhail sat beside her now, his hand still on the blanket at her shoulder, more to sense any sign of life than for comfort. He watched her face. She had the thin features of many from the poorer quarters, worn down by work and hunger. Yet there was something young still in the line of her mouth, in the faint trace of roundness in her cheeks. A smear of melted snow glistened along her temple. "Has she family somewhere, do you think?" Nikolai asked, as if speaking to himself. "If she does, they did not come looking for her," Mikhail said quietly. The sleigh moved through the streets. The lamps flicked by, casting alternating light and shadow over the three of them. Mikhail's thoughts, which usually marched in tidy order, felt unsettled. He had brought people into his home before, of course, guests, officials, petitioners. But they arrived with introductions, with names, with references and intentions written in ink. This girl came with nothing but cold, a few strange words, and a breath so faint it could desert her at any moment. He shifted the blanket slightly. Her hand slipped out from beneath it, falling onto the seat between them. It startled him. Her fingers were raw and red at the tips, the nails cracked. Faint lines of soap and some dark substance marked her skin, traces of days spent with harsh work. On the back of her hand, a white line faded into her wrist, an old scar. He covered her hand again without thinking. "See that fires are lit in the smallest guest room," he told Nikolai. "Fresh linen, and have water heated." "You will place her in the guest wing, Your Grace?" Nikolai asked. Mikhail paused, realizing the question's weight. The guest wing was where noble visitors stayed. But the servants' quarters were drafty, crowded, nowhere for a half-frozen girl to recover. "In the small room near the back stair," he said. "It has its own stove. She will not disturb anyone there." "Yes, Your Grace." They said little else during the rest of the journey. The creak of the sleigh and the muffled beat of hooves filled the silence. Once the girl moved, a tiny shiver that ran through her whole frame. A faint moan escaped her. "Be still," Mikhail said, more gently than he intended. "You are safe." Her lips moved again. "Did not tell," she breathed. "I swear." Mikhail looked at Nikolai. The steward lifted a brow, but did not speak. "She is out of her senses," Nikolai murmured. "The cold does that." "Perhaps," Mikhail said, but the words lodged somewhere in his mind. The gates of his city house came into view at last, tall and dark against the snow. The driver called out to the footman on duty. The great doors opened with a slow groan. The sleigh passed into the courtyard, where lanterns burned brighter, and the snow was trampled by many boots. Servants came hurrying at the sight of their master's return. When they saw him step down with a bundled shape in his arms, their steps faltered. "Send for the housekeeper," Mikhail said without breaking stride, and someone stoked the fires in the small back room on the second floor. "Now." The nearest footman, a young man with anxious eyes, bowed awkwardly. "Yes, Your Grace. At once, Your Grace." Mikhail carried the girl through the entrance hall. Warm air rushed at him from within, scented with wax and bread. Lamps burned along the walls. The floor under his boots was polished, the carpets thick. For the first time in a long while, the contrast between his world and the one outside struck him sharply. She did not stir in his arms. At the base of the staircase stood Irina, the housekeeper, her hands in her apron. Her hair was streaked with grey, her face firm and lined. She took in the scene with one swift glance. The girl, the blankets, the snow still clinging to Mikhail's coat. "Your Grace," she said slowly. "What has happened?" "I found her in the square," Mikhail said. "Frozen half through. She will need a bed, clean clothes, hot broth when she wakes." Irina's mouth pressed into a line. "A girl from the street?" she asked in a quiet voice, soft enough that only he and Nikolai would hear. "Brought into the house at this hour. People will talk." "People always talk," Mikhail answered. "This time they may have something worth the trouble." Irina studied the girl's face. Some of the stiffness in her expression eased. "As you wish, Your Grace," she said. "We will prepare the room at once. I will send one of the maids to sit with her for the first hours." "No," Mikhail said quickly. Then he caught himself. "Not yet. The fewer who see her like this, the less gossip there will be. You will attend to her yourself, if you can." Irina's eyebrows rose, but she nodded. "As you say. Bring her up, then. The small room is ready in a moment." Mikhail climbed the stairs with his burden, feeling her slight weight and the steadying rhythm of his own steps. The hall on the second floor was quiet. Most of the servants slept in their own wing by now. Irina led the way to a narrow door near the back staircase. Inside, the room was simple but clean. A narrow bed, a small chest, one chair, a stove in the corner, already beginning to glow as someone had hurried to light it. The air was still cool, but it held promise of warmth. "Lay her there," Irina said briskly. But her eyes were softer now, as she pulled back the blanket on the bed. Mikhail eased the girl down. She looked even smaller against the white linen. Her hair spread out on the pillow in a dark wave, the ends still damp with melted snow. Irina began to fuss over her at once, her movements efficient. She took the girl's hands between her own rough ones and rubbed them, trying to coax some life back into the frozen skin. "She will need dry clothing," Irina muttered. "I will find a nightdress from the stores. One of the slimmer maid's things will do. We must not let the cold sit in her bones." "Do what you must," Mikhail said. "Send for a physician in the morning if she does not wake." "She will wake," Irina said, more to herself than to him. "Young ones have a stubbornness in them." Mikhail stood for a moment, looking down at the girl. Her breathing was a little deeper now, though still too light for his liking. A faint color had returned to her lips. He did not know her name. He had not asked. There would be time, he told himself, if the night did not take her first. "You will keep this quiet," he said to Irina and Nikolai both. "No stories in the servants' hall, no whispers." "Yes, Your Grace," they answered together. He gave a brief nod and turned away. At the door he paused. The girl made a small sound, a sigh almost, and shifted her head on the pillow. Her hand reached unconsciously toward the edge of the blanket, clutching it as if afraid someone might pull it away. Mikhail felt that strange tightness in his chest again. He left the room without another word. The rest of the night passed for the household in the way nights do in large houses. Fires were banked, lamps were dimmed, footsteps faded. The city outside the windows breathed cold and slow. For Anya, the night was a shapeless thing. She drifted in and out of a warm darkness, unable to anchor herself in time. The memory of the bench rose and fell, mixed with others. The face of her mother, long gone. The lines of a tavern wall. A door half open to a courtyard, where men with smooth coats spoke rough intentions. The landlady's hands on her bundle of clothes. The word out shouted behind her as she hurried down an alley. Sometimes she felt heat against her skin and could not understand it. Sometimes she heard voices, low and unfamiliar. She is still breathing. She must drink when she wakes. It is madness bringing her here. His Grace has made his decision. At one point she felt something warm touch her lips, a spoon perhaps with a bit of broth. Her throat worked with effort. The taste of salt and fat slid down, leaving a trail of warmth. "Good girl," a woman's voice said. "You must help yourself. We cannot do all the work for you." She did not answer. The darkness pulled her back. When morning came, pale and dim through the small window, Anya opened her eyes. For a moment she thought she was still in some dream. The ceiling above her was smooth and white, with a small crack that ran like a thin river from one corner to the other. The pillow under her head was soft. The air in the room did not sting her lungs. It held a gentle heat. She lay very still and listened, no shouting, no coughing from the other girls, no clatter of dishes. Somewhere far away she thought she heard the faint sound of footsteps on polished floor and the muted clink of porcelain. But here, near her, there was only the quiet crackle of a fire. Slowly she turned her head. A stove stood in the corner, its small door closed, an orange glow behind it. Light from a small window fell onto the opposite wall. A chair sat near the bed, empty. On it lay a folded dress and a neatly arranged apron. On a small table beside the bed, someone had placed a cup and a piece of bread. Anya blinked. Her eyes felt dry, as if she had cried in her sleep. She lifted a hand. The movement surprised her. Her arm was heavy, but it obeyed. The blanket covering her was thick and clean. Beneath it, she felt the unfamiliar touch of a soft nightdress. Fear rushed in after wonder. Where am I? The question beat in her like another pulse. She pushed herself up slowly, bracing against the mattress. Her muscles complained, but they held. The world swayed once, then steadied. The room was not large, but there was an order to it that spoke of care. A small rug on the floor, a wash basin on a stand. No cracks in the walls, no damp creeping under the window frame. It was the room of someone who expected warmth, comfort, safety. Not hers, never hers. She closed her eyes, trying to remember. The bench, the snow, footsteps stopping. A deep voice close to her ear. "You're coming with me." She had thought those words part of her dream. Now they returned with a clarity that made her shiver. A man had lifted her. She remembered the feel of a heavy coat wrapped around her, the smell of wool and something like pine, the sway of movement, the sensation of being carried, not walking. She looked down at her hands. Someone had rubbed them with salve. The cracked skin still stung faintly, but the awful numbness was gone. Her fingers flexed. On the back of one hand, the old white scar stood out clean and small. On the chair alongside the dress lay her old shawl, folded. It looked even thinner here than it had in the street. Who had done this? Who had brought her here? She heard, faintly, the sound of voices beyond the door. The words were muffled, but she could tell there were at least two speakers. One was a woman, older, with a calm authority in her tone. The other was a man, his voice lower, steady, used to command. Anya's heart sped up. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. The floor was cool against her bare feet, but not freezing. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders and stood. Her head spun. She caught the edge of the chair until it passed. The voices outside sharpened. "Not a charity house," the woman was saying. "If word spreads, others will arrive at our doors, claiming His grace will take them in." "It is not for the world to decide whom I take into my home," the man's voice replied. "His grace." Anya drew in a breath. Her thoughts scrambled over the words. Only noblemen were called that way. A duke, perhaps. A high count. She had never been this close to such a man, only seen them from a distance, passing in carriages that never slowed. She moved closer to the door, drawn in spite of herself. The blanket trailed behind her. "And yet people talk, Your Grace," the woman said. "They will wonder why a young girl, a stranger, lies in a bed under this roof. They will ask what place she will have here." "Let them wonder," the man said. "They will grow tired of it. They always do." Anya's pulse hammered in her ears. She pressed her hand lightly to the door, as if the wood could somehow tell her more. The woman sighed. "At least learn who she is, from where she comes. The world may seem simple when one is half frozen, but it seldom is." "There will be time for questions," the man answered. "First, she must stand before she can answer anything." His voice. She knew it now. It was the same that had cut through the snow in the square, deep, calm, with a hint of ice under the words. Another voice joined them, softer, male. Perhaps a steward. "Your Grace," he said. "We received word this morning. Count Victor Orloff has sent a note. He wishes to call on you later in the week to speak further on last night's council. He asks also about the incident in the poorer quarter." Anya's breath caught that name, Orlov. Memory flashed. A small courtyard behind a tavern. Men in fine coats. A laugh like a polished blade. That same name spoken with approval and fear. Her own back pressed to the wall, her breath held as she listened to words that were not meant for her. Now his name was here, in this house where she had been carried, on the lips of the man who had saved her. Her stomach turned. The warmth of the room seemed suddenly too thin. "What have I stumbled into?" she thought, a thread of panic weaving through the question. She stared at the door as if it might answer her. As she stared, the handle of her door began slowly to turn. The door opened inward before Anya could step back. Irina stood there, her hand still on the handle, her brows lifting as she nearly bumped into the blanket-wrapped figure. "So," Irina said, "you are up." Anya clutched the blanket tighter. Yes," she murmured. "I did not know if I should leave the bed." "You should do many things," Irina replied. "Staying alive, being the first. Come, sit before you fall over." She stepped aside and jerked her chin toward the bed. Anya obeyed. Her legs were weaker than she wanted to admit. When she sank down again, her head lightened. Behind Irina, two men stood in the narrow hall. One was middle-aged, with neat hair going silver and a measured expression. The other was taller, broader, his dark hair cropped close, his coat plain but well cut. His presence filled the small doorway without effort. Anya knew at once which one was His Grace. Mikhail Volkov did not look like the nobles she had glimpsed from tavern doorways in their bright coats and loud laughter. His clothing was simple for a duke, the dark cloth almost severe. But his bearing was unmistakable, a kind of quiet possession of the space around him. His eyes met hers. They were grey, like river ice that had not yet melted. They took her in with a single sweep. The blanket clutched at her throat, the bare feet on the rug, the hair tangled from sleep. She had the feeling that very little escaped those eyes. "Good morning," he said. His voice was calmer than she remembered, but it was the same one that had cut through the storm. Anya tried to stand again, a reflex to his rank. "You're... sir?" She gave up on the words and dropped into a clumsy curtsy instead, which made the blanket slide off one shoulder. "Sit," he said. "You are in no condition to bow to anyone." His tone was not unkind, just firm. Irina stepped in and pulled the blanket back up around her. "She woke without fever," the housekeeper said. "Breath is steady, hands are less stiff. She will mend." "Good," Mikhail said. He nodded once, as if approving a well-written report. He stepped into the room fully now. The other man, Nikolai, remained in the doorway, hands clasped behind his back. "What is your name?" Mikhail asked. "Anya," she said at once, then remembered her manners. "Anya Petrova, your Grace." The title sounded strange on her tongue. He inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the answer. "Anya Petrova," he repeated. "Do you remember how you came to sit on that bench last night, Anya Petrova?" Some of the warmth she had begun to feel seeped away. The memory of the square returned with its cold. "Yes," she said. "At least, most of it." "Tell me," he said. The words were simple. They left no room for refusal. She drew the blanket closer and forced herself to meet his eyes. "I had been working in a laundry house," she began, "at the edge of the quarter near the river, scrubbing linens, starching collars. They paid little, but it was enough." "How long?" he asked. 4 months, Your Grace. I came from my village in the autumn. My father he was ill. Then my mother, my little brother." Her throat tightened. She pressed on. There was nothing left there for me. I thought in the city I would find more work, more bread. Mikhail listened without changing expression. Only his eyes grew fractionally darker. "And you lost this position how?" he asked. She flushed. "I fainted," she said. "By the tubs. Too much steam. Too many hours. They said I slowed the others. The mistress told me to go. I begged her to let me work for less. She said she had no room for the half-dead." Irina made a soft, disapproving sound at that, but said nothing. "After that," Anya went on, "I found a bed in a house near the market. Many girls sleep there. The landlady charges for each corner. I paid with what I had saved. I took odd work, carrying, mending, serving at the tavern door when they needed an extra hand." Mikhail's gaze sharpened. "At the tavern," he said. "Which tavern?" "Dobrin's," she said, "in the lane behind the square." Nikolai glanced at Mikhail at that, but the Duke's face did not reveal his thoughts. "For you said the landlady turned you out," he prompted. "Why?" Anya's fingers twisted in the blanket. Here the ground grew dangerous. She said I brought trouble," Anya murmured. "That men had come asking questions. About me. About where I slept. She does not like questions." "What kind of men?" Mikhail asked. "Drunkards? Soldiers? Police?" She shook her head quickly. "No, Your Grace. Not drunkards. Not like the ones who shout in the street. They were well-dressed, coats of good cloth. One of them had a ring that caught the light when he raised his hand." She stopped. The image of that ring was so sharp in her mind that it made her heart beat faster. "And they were asking for you specifically?" Mikhail asked. "By name?" "At first, only for the girl who works sometimes at Dobrin's and listens near doors," she said. "Then, later, the landlady said they had my name. I do not know how." He studied her. "You heard something you were not meant to hear," he said. She swallowed. The memory pressed against the back of her teeth, wanting to come out. Men in fine coats, one voice smooth and cold, the glint of lamplight on steel buttons, words like disloyalty, forged, ruin. She saw again how she had shrunk back into the shadows, not understanding everything but understanding enough to feel danger. If she told him now, what then? The note in the landlady's hand floated up in her mind as well. "They will blame you, girl. They will call you liar, traitor. I will not have that stain on my house." Her throat closed. "I hear many things, Your Grace," she said instead. "Men talk near kitchen doors. You cannot stop ears from working. But I am a no one. Who would care what I heard? They must have mistaken me for someone else." It was not a lie, not entirely. It was just not the whole truth. Mikhail did not answer at once. Irina watched Anya closely, her eyes sharp as pins, as if she could see the words left unsaid. "Perhaps," he said finally. He took a step back as if giving her space. "And last night?" he asked. "How did you come to that bench?" "I left the house," Anya said. "The landlady would not let me stay. She said I brought trouble, and trouble draws the law. She gave me my bundle and told me to go. I walked. I thought perhaps I could sleep in the shed by the wash-house, but it was locked. I kept walking. My feet—" She glanced down, suddenly aware that her feet were clean now, wrapped in borrowed socks. "I did not feel them anymore. I saw the bench. I only meant to sit. I must have—" She spread her hands helplessly. "I remember snow. Then your voice. You remember nothing more of last night?" Mikhail asked. She shook her head. "Only that I was so tired," she said softly. "I did not want to die in the street, but I could not stand any more." Silence settled in the little room for a heartbeat. Mikhail turned slightly toward Irina. "She will stay," he said, "at least until she has fully regained her strength." Irina nodded slowly. "There will be talk," she repeated, but there was less conviction in it now. "She will not stay idle," Mikhail added. "We will say she is helping in the housekeeper's service. That will ease some tongues." Anya's head snapped up. "Help," she echoed. "In this house? Would you rather go back to the bench?" Irina asked dryly. "No." The word burst out before Anya could stop it. She flushed again. "I mean, no, thank you. I can work. I am used to work." "Good," Irina said. "Because there is always plenty of it. You will start with simple tasks. Carrying linen, sweeping, polishing where needed. No one will say I keep useless mouths." Mikhail watched the exchange with a faint, unreadable expression. "You will answer to Irina," he told Anya. "You will keep to the servants' areas unless called elsewhere, and you will stay away from taverns and any door that is not yours to pass through. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Grace," she whispered. He studied her one last moment. "If anyone asks how you came here," he said, "you will say that I saw you in need and chose to help. Nothing more." She nodded. "And those men who asked about you," he went on, his tone quieter. "If you remember anything about them that may matter, you will tell me, whether you think it important or not." Her fingers tightened on the blanket. "Yes, Your Grace," she said again. He turned toward the door. "Come, Nikolai," he said. "We have other matters." As he left, his coat brushed the frame. For a heartbeat, Anya caught again that faint scent of clean wool, cold air, and something sharper beneath it. Then he was gone. Irina waited until his footsteps faded. "Well," she said, "you heard his words. That means you have a roof at least for some nights. Let us see that you are fit to earn it." She moved to the chair and picked up the dress. "This belonged to one of the maids who has gone to her marriage," Irina said. "It will fit you better than your rags. Put it on. I will find you shoes. Then we will see what you are good for." Anya took the dress with both hands. "Thank you," she said. "Do not thank me yet," Irina replied. "Wait until you have scrubbed the third-floor corridor." She left the room with brisk steps. Alone again, Anya sat for a moment, feeling the weight of everything that had just shifted in her life. A roof, work, a duke who had carried her in his arms and now gave orders concerning her as if she were some piece of furniture he had decided to keep. She did not understand any of it, but she understood the warmth of the room, the solid floor, the clean blanket. For now that was enough to move her. She rose slowly, changed into the plain, sturdy dress, and tied the apron around her waist. The fabric felt strange but solid. She folded her old shawl carefully and placed it at the foot of the bed, a piece of her old life resting under the new. When she opened the door to the hall, Irina was waiting with a pair of worn shoes. "Here," the housekeeper said. "Not fine, but better than freezing your toes again." "They are more than I had," Anya replied. Irina snorted softly, but there was a hint of approval in her gaze. "Come along then," she said. "I will show you where you may walk and where you may not. The house is large. It eats the unwary." They moved along the corridor. Irina pointed outdoors with quick comments. "Guest rooms. You go in only to clean and only when told," she said. "This door leads to the main stair. You will usually use the back stair. Less eyes, less questions. Kitchens below. Servants' rooms at the far end. Never wander into the front salon without purpose. Nobles do not like to be reminded that people sweep after them. As they descended, sounds grew louder. The clatter of pots, the murmur of voices, the smell of bread and broth. The kitchen was a cave of heat compared to the rest of the house. Several servants looked up when Irina entered with Anya in tow. "This is the girl His Grace brought in," Irina announced without preamble. "Anya, she will be helping. You will treat her as one of us, not as a stray dog he dragged in, is that clear?" Glances flew between the servants. A stout cook with red cheeks wiped her hands on her apron. "As you say, Irina," she said, "we can always use another pair of hands." A younger maid, flower on her cheek, whispered to the boy beside her, not quietly enough. "A duke's charity," she said. "Better than freezing, I suppose. Does he plan to save the whole city?" Irina shot her a look. "If your tongue is so free, Katya, I will find it work to match," she said sharply. "There is a pile of pots that would appreciate your company." Laughter rippled around the room. The younger maid lowered her head, chastened. Anya felt eyes slide over her, measuring, judging, some curious, some indifferent, a few openly suspicious. One older maid, wiping cups, leaned toward another. "I heard he carried her himself," she murmured, "up the stairs like some lost child." "Do not be foolish," the other woman said. "He is a busy man. He has better things to do than play nursemaid. It was late. He could not leave her in the snow. That is all." "You say that," the first replied. "But wait until the ladies hear. They enjoy stories more than supper." Irina clapped her hands once. "Enough," she said. "Anya, you will start with cleaning the smaller pans and sweeping under the tables. Do it well and no one will have cause to complain. Do it poorly and you will hear more from me than you wish." "Yes, madam," Anya said. She went to the sink, rolled up her sleeves and plunged her hands into the warm water. The heat stung at first, then settled into a deep, aching relief. She scrubbed, rinsed, stacked, grateful for the simple rhythm. Work, she understood. Work made sense. The day passed in small tasks. After the kitchen, she swept the narrow back hall, dusted the lower shelves in the storage room, carried folded linens up one flight of stairs and down another. Wherever she went, she felt the glances on her. Questions she could hear but not answer. "Is she staying long? Where did she come from? Did you see her hands? Poor thing. Those are not noble hands. Perhaps she is related to him in some secret way. Do not be ridiculous. Look at her. She is as common as bread." Anya kept her head down and her focus on the floor, the shelves, the cloth in her hand. Each completed task was a small island of certainty. Around midday, Irina finally allowed her a bowl of soup and a thin slice of bread at the servants' table. "You will not work yourself into a faint again under my roof," Irina said firmly. "Eat." Anya obeyed. The soup tasted better than anything she had eaten in months. She finished it before she realized how hungry she truly was. "Thank you," she said, wiping the bowl with the last piece of bread. "Do not thank me," Irina replied. "Thank His Grace. Without his word, you would not be sitting at this table." At the mention of the Duke, several heads turned. "Speaking of His Grace," one footman said, "he has a visitor this afternoon. A count from the council. Very fine carriage. The house is to be kept especially tidy." "Which count?" another asked. "Orloff," the footman replied, lowering his voice as if the name itself deserved care. Anya froze. The spoon in her hand slipped, striking the side of the bowl with a small clink. She stared at the wood grain of the table. Orlov. The name seemed to ring in her ears. She remembered the courtyard behind the tavern, that same name spoken with respect and fear. Those men had talked of influence, of winning the ear of the emperor, of sweeping aside those who stood in their way. One voice, smoother than the rest, had laughed when someone worried about gossip. "In a world of rumors," that voice had said, "we only need the right ones." She had not seen his face clearly then, only the outline, the way the others deferred to him, the glint of a ring when he gestured. Now he was coming here, to this house, to the man who had pulled her from the snow. "Anya?" Irina's voice cut through her thoughts. "Do you know that name?" the housekeeper asked, watching her carefully. Anya forced herself to breathe. "I have heard it in passing," she said, which was true enough. "In the tavern. Men talk." Irina's eyes lingered on her a moment longer, then she nodded. "Go and wipe down the sideboard in the small salon," she said. "Guests will see it. It must shine. Yes, Irina, Anya said. The small salon where she was sent lay near the front of the house, but still within the part where servants were allowed to move. The room smelled faintly of beeswax and old books. Sunlight fell in a pale stripe across the polished floor. Anya set to work, cloth in hand, moving in slow circles over the wood. She could hear faint noises from the larger front room beyond the double doors, the shifting of chairs, the murmur of voices as footmen prepared for the visitor. Her heart beat faster with each sound. When she heard the front door open below, and the deep, formal greeting of a butler, she moved closer to the gap where the small salon connected to the hall. She could not see the entrance, but she could hear the footsteps as they climbed the main staircase. One set of steps, measured and confident. Two voices came nearer. "Your Grace," a stranger said. "You honor me." "Count Orlov," Mikhail replied. "You are welcome." Anya gripped her cloth so tightly it twisted. The two men entered the larger salon next door. The door between rooms was mostly closed, but not completely. A strip of space remained, wide enough to let through sound and a narrow view. "Tea will be brought shortly," Mikhail said. "Please be seated." "You are kind," Orlov answered, "though I had half expected you to be too occupied today after last night's lengthy session. His Imperial Highness drove us all past good sense." "The matters were heavy ones," Mikhail said. "They required time." "And you, as always, offered your careful silence," Orlov said lightly. "An elegant contribution." Anya edged closer to the slim gap. She saw a portion of Orlov's shoulder, the dark fabric of his coat, the gleam of a cuff, part of his hand as it moved. A ring flashed on one finger, gold catching the light. Her stomach clenched. It was the same ring. She would swear it. The same broad band with an engraved crest that had caught the lamplight in the tavern courtyard. Her mouth went dry. Their voices continued. "The Empire needs firm voices more than silent ones these days," Orlov went on. "There are too many whispers. Too much sympathy for unsteady ideas." "Whispers grow when they are fed," Mikhail said calmly. "Cut off their food and they die." "Or they find other mouths," Orlov replied. "You know this. There are men at court who pretend loyalty while secretly doubting the wisdom of our sovereign. It is dangerous. Someone must be willing to name such people." "And risk naming the wrong ones?" Mikhail said. "That is why men like us must decide carefully who merits such suspicion," Orlov answered. "We have the rank to bear the responsibility." The door from the hall opened. A maid entered carrying a tray, followed by a footman with a small table. Anya stepped back quickly into the shadows of the small salon, heart pounding. The maid passed through her room and into the larger one. "Set it there," Mikhail said. "Thank you. Will you take tea, Count?" the maid asked politely. "With pleasure," Orlov replied. There was a brief clink of porcelain. Anya watched through the gap as the maid poured. Orlov's face turned slightly. For an instant she saw his profile. He was younger than she had imagined, perhaps not much older than 30. Handsome in a cold way. His hair was neatly trimmed, his jaw clean-shaven. His eyes, when they shifted to follow the maid's movements, were a pale, clear color that reminded her of the square the night before. Beautiful and merciless. He did not look like a man who would raise his voice or dirty his hands. He looked like a man who could ruin someone with a word. Anya pressed back against the wall, wishing suddenly that the floor would swallow her. The maid turned to leave. As she passed through the small salon, she gave Anya a quick, curious glance. "What are you doing lurking there?" she whispered. "You will have your ears boxed if they find you listening." "I am polishing," Anya said quickly, lifting the cloth. "Irina told me to." "Well, polish quietly," the maid muttered. "That is Count Orlov. He is not one to cross." As if Anya needed telling. She waited until the girl had gone, then forced herself to return to the sideboard. Her hands shook. The cloth slipped a little as she moved it in small circles. In the next room, the conversation shifted. "The matter in the poorer district," Orlov was saying. "I trust it has been contained." "What matter is that?" Mikhail asked. "Some foolish girl," Orlov replied lightly. "Her servant, perhaps, who claimed to have heard dangerous talk where none was spoken. You know how they are, always eager to repeat words they do not understand. It could have caused needless disturbance if it spread. But I am told it has been resolved. A small complication only. Anya's breath halted. The world narrowed to that one phrase. A small complication. They were talking about her. They had to be. Who else could it be? She remembered the landlady's nervous eyes, the way she had pushed Anya's bundle into her hands. "You bring danger, girl," the woman had hissed. "Men like that do not like ears where they do not belong." Now those men sat sipping tea with the Duke whose house had taken her in. She felt suddenly dizzy. "And what of the source of this complication?" Mikhail asked. "The girl? Oh, who knows?" Orlov said carelessly. "These creatures come and go. The city is full of them. No one will pay attention to her beyond her own landlord's doorstep. It is the talk that mattered, and that has been dealt with. People have been reminded how dangerous it is to spread tales without proof. Fear is a blunt instrument," Mikhail said quietly. "Blunt, yes," Orlov replied. "But sometimes blunt tools are useful." There was a pause. Anya realized she was holding her breath and forced herself to let it out slowly. A footman approached the small salon door suddenly. "Anya," he said, "Irina wants you below now. She needs extra hands in the kitchen. His Grace's guest will be staying for supper." "Yes," she said, grateful for any excuse to leave the sound of Orlov's voice behind. She hurried out, down the stairs, into the warmer chaos of the kitchen. For a while she lost herself in slicing bread and fetching plates, carrying dishes to the service hatch. The noise here was a blessing. It drowned out her thoughts. When the meal had been taken up and the kitchen began to quiet, she slipped into a corner to wipe a table. Her hands moved on their own. The back door opened with a gust of colder air. A boy from the street, one of those the servants sometimes paid to run small errands, stepped in. "I have something for the house," he said, holding up a folded paper. "Someone said to leave it here." "For whom?" the cook asked. "They did not say." The boy shrugged. "Only that it was for the girl who listens where she should not." The words fell into the room like a dropped pan. Several heads turned at once. The cook scowled. "Who talks like that?" she muttered. "Nonsense." Anya did not move. The boy held out the paper, and for a moment no one claimed it. Finally, Irina stepped forward. "Give it here," she said. He handed it over and got his coin. The door closed behind him, shutting out the cold. Irina turned the folded paper in her fingers. There was no name on the outside, only the short, neat line in dark ink. "To the girl who listens where she should not." Eyes slid toward Anya. Irina's gaze followed them. Slowly, as if pulled, she looked at Anya, then back at the paper. "Come," she said quietly, crossing the room. She held it out. "I suppose this is for you," she said. Anya stared at it. The paper seemed heavier than it should, a small, sharp weight in Irina's steady hand. Her own hand trembled as she reached out. The letters swam for a moment before her eyes, then settled. Her fingers closed around the folded sheet, feeling the crisp edge against her skin. She did not yet open it. She stood there in the warm kitchen, the murmur of the other servants a distant hum, and thought that whatever lay inside these few lines might change everything again, for better or for worse. She stared at the folded paper, her heart pounding, unable to decide whether to break the seal or let it burn unread in the stove. Irina watched her for a moment, then glanced around at the other servants. "Back to your tasks," she said. "The Duke's guest is still upstairs. The soup will not serve itself." Chairs scraped. Voices rose again, quieter now, as people returned to their work. The air in the kitchen warmed with movement and steam. Still, a small circle of distance remained around Anya and the folded paper. Irina lowered her voice. "Do not stand there like a post," she murmured. "If it is for you, read it. If it is nonsense, we will throw it into the fire and be done." I should read it alone," Anya said. Irina studied her face. "Very well," she said. "Come with me." She led Anya out of the kitchen, down the short passage to the small storeroom where sacks of flour and jars of preserves lined the walls. It was cooler here, quieter. Irina closed the door behind them. "There," she said, "no ears but mine. And I have heard worse things than any paper can say." Anya looked down at the note. Her fingers fumbled at the fold. The seal was nothing grand, only a pressed smear of wax to keep it shut. She broke it. The writing inside was neat, firm, as if the hand that held the pen had not trembled over any word. "You do not know me, but I know of you. The city speaks quickly. It speaks of a girl who stood where she should not have been, who listened to words she was not meant to hear. You may think this makes you important. It does not. It only makes you vulnerable. There are men in this city whose positions matter more than the life of a servant or the comfort of a landlady. If you repeat even one word of what you heard in that courtyard, you will be said to have spread lies against the loyalty of honorable men. The law is clear on such things. Tales of disloyalty are not taken lightly. You will not be believed. You will be blamed. Take this as a kindness. Forget what you heard. If you are wise, you will keep your eyes lowered and your mouth shut. If you are not wise, I cannot protect you from the consequences of your own tongue. Anya read the lines twice, then a third time, hoping they would change. They did not. Her hand shook. Who is it from? Irina asked quietly. There is no name, Anya whispered. Only this. She held the paper out. Irina took it and read, her lips tightening as she went. Pretty words, she said. Cold words. Whoever wrote this has practiced such speeches. Her gaze flicked up. This speaks of the law, Irina went on, of consequences, of men whose positions matter more than your life. That is the way of the world. It does not make it right. Anya swallowed. They know, she murmured. They know I listened. They know I was there. You did listen then, Irina said. You heard something. Anya opened her mouth, then closed it again. The words on the page weighed on her tongue like stones. If I say it, she whispered, they will call me a liar. They will say I falsely accuse men with rank. The note is right. No one will believe me. I am only a girl who scrubs floors. Irina folded the paper. You are also a girl under this roof now, she said. And that is not nothing. Anya stared at her. What does that change? She asked. Irina hesitated, then spoke slowly. His Grace is not a man who frightens easily, she said. Nor is he a fool. If someone writes threats to a servant in his house, he should know. Whether you tell him is your choice, but do not think silence will keep you safe. Silence only leaves you alone. The thought of standing in front of the Duke again, of handing him this paper, made Anya's stomach twist. Yet the idea of keeping it hidden felt worse now, like holding a small coiled thing under her own pillow. What would you do? She asked. Irina gave a short, humorless smile. I am an old woman, she said. I have had time to regret both what I said and what I kept back. If you ask me now, I would say this. I would show the master of the house any note that threatens his servants under his roof. Let him decide what to do with it. Anya looked at the folded paper in Irina's hands. Will you give it to him? She asked. Irina shook her head. No, she said. If you are brave enough to listen behind doors, you must be brave enough to speak in front of them. I will tell Nikolai that you seek audience. He will smooth the way. But you must walk through the door. Anya's throat felt dry. What if he sends me away? She whispered. Then at least you will know where you stand, Irina said. Better that than waiting for shadows to decide your fate. She opened the storeroom door. Finish your tasks, she added. When he is free, we will call you. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze for Anya. Her hands moved over dishes and cloths, but her mind stayed fixed on the folded paper in her apron pocket. Every time she passed another servant, she wondered if they knew. Every time she heard footsteps in the hall, her heart jumped. Near the end of the day, when the light outside the kitchen windows had turned soft and grey, Nikolai appeared in the doorway. Anya, he said, His Grace will see you. Her spoon slipped back into the pot. Now? She asked. Now, Nikolai replied. Bring whatever it is you wish to show him. Her feet felt heavy as she walked behind him toward the front of the house. They did not take the main staircase. Nikolai led her instead through a side corridor and up a narrower flight of steps that emerged near the Duke's study. Do not be afraid, Nikolai said softly as they approached the closed door. He has seen more troubling things than a note. I am not afraid, she lied. He knocked. Enter, came Mikhail's voice. Nikolai opened the door and stepped aside to let Anya pass. The study was lined with shelves, as she had glimpsed through the gap of the salon door earlier. A large desk stood near the window, papers laid out in neat stacks. Mikhail sat behind it, a pen in his hand. He looked up as she entered. Anya, he said, Nikolai tells me you have something that concerns this house. Anya stood near the door, unsure how far she was allowed inside. "Yes, Your Grace," she said. Her voice sounded thin. "Come closer," he said. "I cannot speak to you across the room like a judge to a defendant. I am only trying to understand." She took a few steps forward until she stood on the edge of the carpet before his desk, her fingers twisted in her apron. "Take a breath," he said quietly, "then speak." She did as he said. The air smelled faintly of ink and wood polish. "This came to the kitchen," she said. "A boy brought it. He said it was for the girl who listens where she should not. There is no name." But everyone looked at me. She took the folded paper from her pocket and held it out with both hands. Mikhail rose and crossed the small distance to take it. His fingers brushed the edge of the paper, not her skin. He unfolded it and read in silence. As his eyes moved over the lines, the muscles in his jaw tightened. By the time he reached the end, his expression was not angry, exactly. It was colder, like the air outside when the clouds covered the sun. "Who has seen this?" he asked. "Irina," Anya said, "and those in the kitchen saw that there was a note, but not what it said. Irina brought me to the storeroom to read it." He nodded once. "You did well to show it to her," he said, "and to bring it to me." "She told me to," Anya replied. "I was not sure." "What were you not sure of?" he asked. She lifted her chin a little, though it felt like lifting a great weight. "I was not sure if putting this in your hand would protect me or make things worse," she said. "For me. For you. The note says that false tale-tellers can be punished, that the law does not like the poor when they speak against the high." "Do you intend to tell false tales?" he asked. "No, Your Grace," she answered at once. "I intend not to tell tales at all if I can help it, but I am already in this whether I wish it or not." He studied her face. "Sit," he said, nodding toward a chair near the wall. "We will not resolve this with you swaying on your feet." She sat on the edge of the chair, hands clenched in her lap. Mikhail returned to his side of the desk, but he did not sit. He stood, the paper still in his hand. "You said before that you have heard many things at tavern doors," he said. "You did not say that some of those things concerned men of rank and loyalty." She looked down. "I did not want to bring trouble into your house," she said. "You took me from the snow. You gave me a bed. Why should I repay that with more shadows?" "Shadows do not disappear because you close your eyes," he said. "They only move where you cannot see them." He laid the note flat on the desk. "Tell me exactly what you heard at that tavern," he said. "From the beginning. Every word you remember. Do not try to decide what matters. Let me do that." The request felt like a door opening and a weight pressing at the same time. She took another breath. "It was 3 nights before I left the landlady's house," she began. "Dobrin had asked me to help in the back, carrying empty mugs, washing a few. It was late. Most of the men had gone. I took a bucket of scraps out to the small yard. There is a side door there where sometimes carriages stop." She saw it again in her mind as she spoke. "The door was ajar," she continued. "I heard voices, not like the usual ones inside, quieter, like they did not want to be heard, but they were not whispering. I thought maybe it was the owner arguing about money. I did not mean to listen, I was just tired. I set the bucket down and leaned against the wall." "What did you hear?" he asked. "The first voice I remember said something about the emperor," she said, "about how His Majesty listened too much to certain men who insisted that all whispers of unrest were nothing. He said that if the emperor did not see the weak points in his own court, others might show them to him." "Go on," Mikhail said. "Another voice asked if he meant to accuse someone openly," she said. The first one laughed. He said, "Openly, of course not. No one survives an open quarrel with men of that rank, but there are other ways. Papers, names, lists. If the emperor sees a pattern, he will draw his own conclusions." Mikhail's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the desk. "Did they name anyone?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Not at once. They spoke of certain dukes, men who were too close to the older ways, too loyal to old promises. They said these men slowed necessary changes, that they would rather keep their honor than bend to new arrangements." "Did they mention what these new arrangements were?" he asked. "No, Your Grace," she said. "Only that there were profits to be had, that some would gain, some would lose. They laughed about certain laws that could be interpreted to their benefit." He said nothing. His face was unreadable. "There was a third man," Anya went on. He worried. He asked what would happen if the accused protested, if they said the papers were false, if they demanded proof. "And the answer?" Mikhail asked. "The first man said there would be no need for direct accusations," she said. "Only suggestions, only enough to plant a doubt. He said, if a man has enemies, doubt will cling to him like smoke. No one will ask where it came from." "Did they speak of how they would create these doubts?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "They spoke of letters, of signatures, of words that could be placed in the wrong mouths, forged if need be. One of them said that no one reads every line of every paper they sign." "Unfortunately true," Mikhail murmured. "Then," she said, "they began to speak of a place. They said, we will need a house whose owner is beyond suspicion, one whose loyalty is old and unquestioned. If such a house is the source of these concerns, the emperor will listen." Another said, "He is too stubborn for our circle, but his name would lend weight, and he is too honest to twist our meaning before it reaches higher ears." She looked up at him, her eyes wide, afraid she had overstepped. "They did not say your name, Your Grace," she said quickly. "Not that I heard. But they spoke of a duke whose loyalty has never been questioned, whose family has served for generations, whose house is large enough to host a small, select gathering." "Many dukes have such houses," he said, though there was a new tension in his voice. "One of them said your family name," she whispered. "I remember it. He said, Volkov is a problem. He stands too straight. He will not bend." Another laughed and said, "Then let us use his straightness to our purpose." The study went very still. "So," Mikhail said after a moment, "they spoke my name." "Yes, Your Grace," she said. "I am sorry." "You did not put the word in his mouth," he replied. "Do not apologize for what another man chooses to say." He began to pace slowly, 2 steps one way, 2 steps back. "Did they mention a date?" he asked. "An occasion?" "They spoke of a gathering before the thaw," she said. "A winter reception, but not too large. They said it must seem like a simple evening, cards, music, nothing to draw attention at first. Only later, in the smaller room, would the papers appear." "The smaller room," he repeated. "My house has several. They spoke of the host reading out concerns," she said, "of how it would sound if he said, 'Some papers have come to my notice. They trouble me. I fear some at court may not be as loyal as they seem.' Then they would show him what they wanted him to see." Mikhail stopped pacing. "And if I refused?" he asked quietly. "If I refused to read such things?" "They did not speak of that," she said, "only of how useful it would be if you did. They assumed you could be persuaded by concern for the empire, that you would not wish to seem blind to danger." He was silent again, thinking. "And after?" he asked. "If these papers were read, what then?" "The first man said," she replied slowly, searching her memory. "Once planted, doubt will grow. The emperor already fears disloyalty. He will be eager to act. Those who hinder us will find themselves questioned, shamed, removed. We will be there to offer replacements. Men more understanding." She finished and waited, almost afraid to breathe. At last Mikhail spoke. "Why did you not tell me this before?" he asked. "Would you have believed me?" she whispered. He considered that for a moment. "Perhaps not," he admitted. "Not at once. But this note changes the color of your story." He picked it up again, reading the lines about tales and consequences. "Whoever wrote this feels threatened by your memory," he said. "They would not bother with a warning if you were of no importance." "What will you do?" she asked. "First, I will try to confirm what can be confirmed," he said. "I will review my recent correspondence, see who has asked me to host what. I will speak with 1 or 2 men whose loyalty I trust completely, quietly. If there is indeed such a gathering planned, I must know its shape before I attend it." Anya's hands twisted tighter. "They will know someone spoke," she said. "If you act, they will assume the girl in the tavern talked. This note says someone wanted to protect me before, at least a little. If I keep silent, maybe they will leave me." "Do you believe that?" he asked, his gaze direct. She hesitated. "No," she said. "I think they will do what suits them, with me or without me." "Then, better that you stand where there is some light," he said. Then alone in the dark, he folded the note carefully. "You will not speak of this to anyone else," he said. "Not in the kitchen, not to the other maids, not to the boy who brought the paper. If anyone asks, you will say it was a bill for supplies, and that Irina took care of it." "Yes, Your Grace," she said. "I do not say this to silence you," he added. "I say it to keep your words from reaching ears eager to twist them." A thought struck her. "Count Orloff," she blurted. "He was here today. He spoke of a small complication in the poor quarter. He said it had been resolved." Mikhail's gaze sharpened. "You heard that?" he asked. "I was in the small salon," she said. "Polishing, as Irina told me. The door was not fully shut. I saw his ring. I remember it from that night. The same ring that moved when he spoke about lists and papers." "Did he mention you by name?" Mikhail asked. "No," she said, "but he spoke of a girl, of rumors. He sounded certain the matter was finished." Mikhail's mouth hardened. "Then he will be surprised," he said, "to find that his small complication sits at my table and washes my dishes." Her lips twitched despite her fear. "What will you do about him?" she asked. "For now, nothing," he said. To his face, nothing has changed. If he believes his plan proceeds smoothly, he may grow careless. A careless man reveals more than he intends. A wary man hides even his own shadow. He moved to the door and called, "Nikolai." The steward appeared. "Your Grace," he said. "Bring me the recent invitations and requests," Mikhail said. "From the last month, especially those concerning social gatherings. I wish to see them tonight." "Yes, Your Grace," Nikolai replied. He vanished down the hall. Mikhail turned back to Anya. "You may go," he said. "You have done enough for one day. Return to your tasks." And Anya... She paused at the doorway. "Yes, you were right to be wary," he said. "But you were also right to speak. Whatever comes next, you will not face it alone in some rented corner." Her eyes stung suddenly, but she blinked the feeling away. "Thank you," she said. She left the study and walked back toward the servants' wing. Her steps felt lighter and heavier at once. Lighter because some of the burden had left her. He knew now. The secret was not hers alone. He believed her, or believed enough to act. Heavier because she also knew that talking had not removed the danger. It had only changed its shape. That night, after the last dish was washed and the last candle snuffed in the kitchen, she lay awake in her small room. The ceiling crack drew a faint line above her. She listened to the muffled sounds of the house settling. Somewhere far away, a clock struck the hour. Her thoughts wandered to the men in the courtyard, to Count Orloff's pale eyes, to the firm tilt of Mikhail's jaw when he said he would look into invitations. The city felt suddenly larger and smaller at the same time. Larger because the affairs of dukes and counts touched her life now. Smaller because everything seemed to be drawing toward one point, a gathering before the thaw in this very house. She did not know what she could do when that evening came. She could not step into a room of nobles and declare their papers false. She had no proof beyond her memory and a threatening note. But she could watch, listen, carry what she saw to the one man who had taken her seriously. For now that had to be enough. In the days that followed, life in the house kept its rhythm, but an undercurrent of tension grew. Mikhail moved with the same outward calm, yet he spent more hours in his study, more evenings reading letters instead of joining any small gatherings. Nikolai came and went with stacks of envelopes. Irina noticed. "One of you will wear a hole in the floor," she grumbled, as Nikolai passed the kitchen again. "What is it now?" "Another letter with 3 seals and no sense." "Something like that," he said mildly. "Do not worry, Irina. If the floor gives way, we will ask you how to build it stronger." "Bring me the funds and I will," she replied. Anya listened and said nothing. 3 days after she had spoken to Mikhail, as the afternoon light slanted low, she was again in the corridor near his study, carrying a basket of folded linen to the linen room. As she approached the familiar door, it opened suddenly. Nikolai stepped out, a document in his hand. His expression was thoughtful. He saw her and paused. "Ah," he said. "Irina's new helper. Always in the right place at the right time." She felt a flicker of alarm. "I did not mean to linger," she said quickly. "I am only passing with the linens." He smiled faintly. "Do not worry," he said. "No one will accuse you of plotting with pillowcases." From inside the study, Mikhail's voice called, "Nikolai." "Yes, Your Grace," the steward answered, turning back. "Bring it in," Mikhail said. "I would see the seal again." Nikolai hesitated, then looked at Anya. "You may as well come too," he said. You have a stake in this, whether you like it or not." Her heart stuttered. "I am not sure His Grace wants me there," she began. "I would not have called if I did not," Mikhail's voice said from within. She stepped through the doorway. Mikhail stood by the window, a letter open on the desk in front of him. The late light made the edges of the paper gleam. On the front of the folded outer sheet, a heavy seal of dark wax was pressed. The crest stamped into it was one she had only seen on coins and official notices. "The imperial crest," she whispered. Mikhail looked up at her. "Your memory," he said calmly, "has just been given its stage." He tapped the letter. "This is a formal confirmation," he went on. "At the request of several members of the council, His Imperial Highness has approved and encouraged a winter reception to be held here in this house in 2 weeks' time. A small, select gathering, with one of his close relatives in attendance, to discuss concerns regarding loyalty and stability at court." Anya's breath caught. She stared at the crest, then at his face, and knew with a cold clarity that the very evening she had overheard in the tavern had now been fixed in ink and sealed with the Emperor's own symbol. For a long moment, no one spoke. Anya stood with her hands twisted in her apron, staring at the seal. It seemed to look back at her like a small, unblinking eye. "So it is real," she said quietly. "Not just men boasting in a courtyard." "It is real," Mikhail replied. "And now it carries the weight of the imperial crest." Nikolai shifted beside the desk. "You cannot refuse," he said, not without drawing attention. "I know," Mikhail answered. "That is why it was chosen. A loyal man cannot refuse a call to show his loyalty." He picked up the letter and turned it over once more, as if hoping the words would change. "They mean to use your name," Anya murmured, "your house, to hurt others. And perhaps to hurt me, if I do not step where they wish," he said. "If I refuse, I will seem uncooperative at best, suspect at worst. If I agree without knowing their shape, I become their instrument." Nikolai cleared his throat. "Is there a path between these two walls?" he asked. "You have walked worse ledges." Mikhail's mouth tugged in a humorless half-smile. "Perhaps," he said. "We must find it." He laid the letter on the desk and looked at Anya. "You have given us warning," he said. "Without it, I would receive this with polite satisfaction and step into their snare blindfolded." "It is only my ears," she said. "Anyone could have heard." "Anyone could have heard," he agreed, "but only you did, and only you chose to speak. Remember that. When fear tells you you are small." She dropped her gaze, not trusting her voice. "What will you do?" Nikolai asked. Mikhail sat, his fingers steepled. "First, we will not show that anything is amiss," he said. "We will prepare as any household would. Rooms, music, food. Let them think the stage is theirs." "And behind the curtains?" Nikolai asked. "Behind the curtains, we will set our own lines," Mikhail answered. "I will write to 1 or 2 men of unimpeachable loyalty, not Orlov's friends. Men I have known since we were both too young for such games. I will ask that one of them bring with him certain documents, true records, true signatures of those they may wish to smear." "Old letters?" Nikolai asked. "Old letters," Mikhail confirmed. "Originals. Anything that shows a pattern of loyalty, not doubt. We will have them at hand when their papers appear." "And if their papers never appear," Nikolai said. "Then we drink, listen to bad music, and call it an ordinary evening," Mikhail replied. "But I doubt they will waste such an opportunity." He turned to Anya again. "As for you," he said, "I will need your eyes." "My eyes," she repeated. "So you are the only person in this house who has seen some of those men together outside of court and council," he said. "You will recognize faces that mean nothing to the others. When the evening comes, you must watch, discreetly. If you see those men slip away with papers or pass something to one another, you must find a way to tell me or Nikolai. I am only a servant," she said. "They will see me if I creep in corners." "Servants are invisible until they stumble," he said. "Walk as if you belong. Carry a tray, a cloth, a jug of wine. You will see more than any guest. Just do not let your courage turn into recklessness." She swallowed. "I will do what I can," she said. "I know," he replied. He picked up his pen again. "Go back to your work," he said. "Let the house move as it always does. We will not feed their suspicions by running in circles." She curtsied as best she could and left the study, her head buzzing. The corridor outside seemed narrower than before. 2 weeks, she thought. 2 weeks until the house fills with men who play with people's lives like cards. The days that followed blurred with movement. Word of the upcoming reception spread quickly through the staff. Orders multiplied. Linen to air, silver to polish, extra firewood to stack. The cook, red-faced and determined, began muttering menus like prayers. A small gathering, they say, she told Irina. Small to them is 10 tables to me. We will need more hands, and more sugar. Does the imperial family think sweets grow on trees? Irina only wrote lists and gave orders, her voice brisk. Anya, help with the tablecloths, she called. Anya, carry those candles to the upstairs chest. Carefully. If you break even one, I will have your hide. Anya, fetch more soap. There is not enough in the city for all this polishing. The younger maids watched Anya with mixed expressions. You will see fine clothes that night, Katya said as they sorted napkins. You may forget what rags look like. I will be too busy wiping spills to stare, Anya replied. Perhaps His Grace will let you stand at the door like a guest, the girl retorted, laughing. He seems fond of stray kittens. Irina's hand came down flat on the table. Enough, she said. Your tongue will land you in more trouble than any kitten. Mind your folding. As the work increased, suspicion towards Anya did not entirely fade. But something else grew alongside it, a rough sort of acceptance. She worked hard. She did not complain more than the others. She learned which spoons matched which bowls, which runner belonged to which table, how Irina liked her corners swept. One evening, as they finished laying clean cloths in the second-floor corridor, Irina paused. You climb like a cat, she remarked. Always quiet, always where you should be. You said the house eats the unwary, Anya answered. I try not to be a meal. Irina huffed, almost a laugh. Good, she said. Keep that in mind. There will be many unwary souls here on the night. Your head will be the safer for it. The night of the reception arrived with a fresh fall of snow. By late afternoon, the courtyard was a churn of hoofprints and boot marks as delivery carts rolled in and out. Inside, chandeliers were lit one by one. The house seemed to grow brighter with each flame. Anya tied a fresh apron over her plain dress and smoothed it with nervous hands. Do not wrinkle it before you even begin, Irina scolded, though her own fingers lingered a moment on Anya's shoulder. You will be in the upper corridors tonight, not the kitchen. His Grace wants you where you can see comings and goings. Near the study? Anya asked. Yes, Irina said. But not in it. Do not let curiosity pull you over any threshold without permission. You understand? I understand, Anya said. Good, Irina replied. And remember, you are a pair of hands carrying trays, no more. If anyone looks at you too long, look back once, then lower your eyes. Do not challenge, do not cringe. Be there and not there. Anya nodded, holding the advice like a shield. From the top of the main staircase, she stole one glance at the front hall before the first guests arrived. Mikhail stood near the door, speaking quietly with Nikolai. He wore a dark evening coat, his white shirt crisp at the collar. A simple pin sat in his cravat, nothing ostentatious. Yet he looked entirely at home in the space, as if he and the house were both cut from the same strong cloth. He seemed different from the man who had bent over her on the bench. Taller somehow, more remote. But when he turned his head and his gaze flicked up toward the landing, their eyes met for the briefest moment. He gave the smallest nod, as if to say, You are where you should be. Her heart steadied. The first carriage rolled up. The servant at the door announced names in a clear voice. Fur-lined cloaks were taken, boots brushed, hats carried away. Gentlemen bowed, ladies dipped their heads under feathered hats. Colours moved through the hall like a slow, dignified river. Anya kept to the shadows of the upper corridor, carrying empty trays down, returning with full ones. From this vantage, she saw guests pause before entering the grand salon, heard snatches of polite conversation. You honour us, Your Highness, Mikhail said, as a tall, broad-shouldered man with greying hair stepped inside. The man's uniform was rich but not overdone. A star glinted on his chest. The Grand Duke inclined his head. The honour is mine, he said. My cousin speaks highly of your loyalty. Loyalty is a simple duty, Mikhail replied. Hospitality less so. I hope we shall manage both tonight. The Grand Duke smiled faintly. Already you reassure me, he said. Count Orloff arrived not long after. His coat gleamed with a subtle sheen, his cuffs embroidered with a pattern that caught the light. He bowed to the Grand Duke, then turned to Mikhail with the easy confidence of a man sure of his place. "Your Grace," he said warmly, "you have outdone yourself. The house looks splendid." "I have my staff to thank," Mikhail answered. "They understand better than I how much wax and water go into such splendor." Orloff laughed softly. "The Empire would be a quieter place if its troubles could be solved with wax and water," he said. "Perhaps they can, in a way. A few well-written pages, a few careful signatures, and the storm moves elsewhere." Anya, passing behind a pillar with a tray, shivered. All evening she watched. She watched Orloff drift from group to group, smiling, listening, letting others speak more than he did. She watched another man join him at times, one she recognized from the tavern yard, shorter, with a receding hairline and quick, darting eyes. They spoke in low voices near a side table, heads bent over nothing more than a program of music. She watched a third figure, a gentleman with a neat moustache, approach them briefly. He wore the uniform of a minor official. His hand lingered inside his inner coat pocket as he nodded to Orloff, then slipped away down the corridor toward the back of the house. Her skin prickled. She shifted her tray to her other hand and followed at a distance. The man walked with purpose, but not with the sure steps of someone who knew the house well. He glanced at the door numbers, hesitated once, then turned toward the hallway that led to Mikhail's study. Anya quickened her pace, keeping far enough that he would not hear her. At the corner she slowed, peering around. He stopped in front of the study door, looked both ways, then reached into his coat and drew out a slim leather folder. Her breath hitched. He checked the handle. The door opened to his hand. He slipped inside and closed it behind him. She stood frozen, her back pressed against the wall. The corridor was empty. The murmurs from the front rooms sounded distant. This was it, the moment the courtyard voices had described. Papers carried into a loyal man's study. Her feet wanted to turn and run back to the kitchen, to the noise and heat. But another part of her, the stubborn part that had stayed to listen behind the tavern door, would not let her move. She set the tray carefully on a small table against the wall. Her hands were damp. She tried the study door. It was not locked. It opened a finger's width when she pressed it, enough to let through a sliver of sound and a narrow view. Inside, the man stood at Mikhail's desk, the leather folder open. Several sheets lay on the wood. He spoke under his breath, as if reciting a list to himself. "Volkov, Petrovsky, Yermilin," he murmured. "Yes, that will do." And the signatures. He arranged the pages in a careful fan. Anya's eyes darted over the desk. On one side, she saw another stack of papers tied with a ribbon. These, she guessed, were Mikhail's own documents. The man took one or two sheets from his folder and slipped them among the others, his fingers quick and practiced. Her pulse hammered in her ears. He paused, listening. Then he moved to the small side table where correspondence was sometimes placed awaiting response. He left the leather folder there, now thin, and took up a different sheet, as if rearranging a few stray letters to disguise his work. He turned toward the door. Anya stepped back at once, barely managing to pull the door closed to its original gap. She grabbed the tray, lifted it, and walked down the hall at a measured pace, as if she had never stopped. The study door opened behind her. The man stepped out, smoothed his cuffs, and walked the other way, back toward the main rooms. He passed her without a glance, assuming her to be part of the furnishings. Her knees wanted to give way. She forced them to carry her to the end of the corridor, then down the back stair to where she knew she would find Nikolai passing orders. He stood near the service door to the side salon, checking that wine glasses were in place. "Nikolai," she said under her breath, "please, I must speak with you, quickly." He turned. "This is not the time," he began. "It is," she insisted. The man with the official's uniform, short, with the mustache. He went into the study. He put papers on his Grace's desk. I saw it. His expression changed at once. "You are certain?" he asked. "Yes," she said. He pulled them from a leather folder. Then he hid them among other papers. Nikolai looked toward the main salon, where laughter rose briefly over the music. "Stay here," he said quietly. "Do not follow." He set his own tray aside and moved away, his steps unhurried but direct. To anyone watching, he was only a steward checking that lamps were properly lit. Anya pressed herself into the alcove by the stair and tried to breathe slowly. Minutes stretched. Finally, Nikolai returned. His face was composed, but his eyes were brighter than before. "You were right," he said. "They were there. Fresh ink. Different hand from the rest. His Grace has removed them." "How?" she whispered. "Is anyone suspicious?" "He pretended he needed a particular note about wine deliveries," Nikolai said. "He stepped into the study between toasts." The man who planted them watched, thinking nothing of it. One duke, a stack of papers, no fuss. His Grace slipped those sheets into his sleeve. When he came out, his face was the same as when he went in. Anya let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. "What now?" she asked. "Now," Nikolai said, "we wait for them to ask him to read what they think they left." The evening unrolled like a carefully woven cloth. Music played in the salon. Couples stood in small clusters, murmuring about the weather, the latest plays, the distant wars that took sons and brothers. Servants moved through with trays. Laughter rose and fell. Anya made her rounds, refilling glasses, gathering empty plates. Her body moved on habit. Her mind watched the currents. She saw Orlov glance toward the Grand Duke more than once, saw the small official nod to him almost imperceptibly, saw Mikhail answer polite questions with his usual measured calm. After supper, when most guests had eaten their fill, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations grew quieter, more focused. Someone suggested that a smaller group retire to the side salon to discuss certain concerns. The Grand Duke agreed. Anya watched as Mikhail, Orlov, the Grand Duke, and half a dozen others drifted toward a door that led not to the main salon, but to a smaller, more intimate room lined with books. It was the very room the courtyard voices had mentioned. Her heart thudded. "Careful with that carafe," Irina whispered near her ear, startling her. "If you spill it on Lady Morozova's gown, she will lecture us until spring." Anya blinked. "Duchess Morozova?" she asked. Irina jerked her chin toward a group near the fireplace. A tall woman stood among them, her dark hair arranged perfectly, her jewels modest but well chosen. Her beauty had an edge to it. She spoke to a younger lady, with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. As if sensing their gaze, the Duchess looked over. Her eyes swept the servants, lingering on Anya. There was curiosity there, and something cooler. "Do not let that one catch you staring," Irina murmured. "She knows how to use a glance like a knife." The smaller group disappeared into the side salon. The door remained half open. Anya drifted closer, carrying a tray of fresh cups, as if waiting to be called. Inside, she heard the Grand Duke's voice. "You suggested this meeting, Count Orlov," he said. "You spoke of troubling whispers. Let us not waste the evening. What concerns press you so?" Orlov's tone was smooth. "Your Highness," he said, "these are not matters I raise lightly, but there have been patterns, letters, expressions of sympathy with ideas that do not support the stability we all cherish. It would be negligence not to bring them to your attention." "And you have proof?" the Grand Duke asked. "Names, papers?" "Some, yes," Orlov replied. "In fact, I believe certain documents may already be in this house. His Grace, in his zeal, may have collected them. I overheard mention, at council, of letters that troubled him." Anya's eyes widened. He was trying to make it seem as if the papers had come from Mikhail himself. Inside, there was a brief pause. Then Mikhail spoke. "You have keen ears, Count," he said. "I did speak of certain letters. In fact, I have them at hand." Anya nearly dropped her tray. That meant he had replaced the forgeries with something else. "I would not presume to trouble your Highness with gossip," Mikhail went on, "but since we are gathered for this purpose, perhaps it is best that we all see the same pages." "Bring them then," the Grand Duke said. "Let us judge for ourselves." "Gladly," Mikhail replied. His footsteps approached the door. Anya stepped back, lowering her eyes. He passed her with a slight nod, as if she were just another piece of furniture. He disappeared toward the study. Moments later, he returned with a leather folder in his hand. It looked very much like the one the official had carried earlier. Anya doubted it was the same. Mikhail placed it on the small table in the center of the room. "These," he said, "are copies of letters and reports concerning several members of the court. I asked trusted friends to send them. men whose loyalty is beyond question. May we see? The Grand Duke asked. Of course, Mikhail answered. Papers rustled. Voices dropped. Anya edged another step closer. What am I looking at? The Grand Duke said after a moment. Reports from provincial governors, Mikhail replied. Letters from officers. Notes from ministers. All attesting to the steady service of certain men. Their efforts to calm unrest, to uphold the law, to defend the Crown's interests. Not the signs of disloyalty I expected, the Grand Duke remarked. Nor I when I began to gather them, Mikhail said. I had been told that certain nobles murmured against the Emperor's wisdom, that they harbored dangerous thoughts. I thought it my duty to learn if it were so, I asked quietly. I received these. Who told you of their supposed disloyalty? The Grand Duke asked. Mikhail paused. Certain colleagues, he said, men who spoke of secret leanings, of whispered doubts. I will not name them without cause, but I found that their concerns did not match the deeds recorded here. Orlov's voice entered, smooth but tighter than before. Your Grace, he said, surely you must admit that reports can be selective. Men write what they wish to be seen. As can accusations, Mikhail replied. That is why I prefer deeds written over years to whispers heard in corners. The Grand Duke's tone cooled. You spoke, Count Orlov, of letters more troubling than these, he said. Letters that suggested disloyalty. Do you have them? There was a small silence. I was told, Orlov said slowly, that such letters had been seen by our host, that he found them concerning. If he has chosen to show only those that comfort us, perhaps he has been too cautious. On the contrary, Mikhail said, I would be eager to see such letters myself. Perhaps they were placed somewhere in my study without my knowledge. Count, if you know of their existence, you must know their path. The Grand Duke's gaze sharpened. Placed in your study, he repeated. Without your knowledge, Mikhail answered calmly. This afternoon, he said, one of your officials entered my study uninvited. I am sure by mistake. He left certain papers on my desk, papers that did not match my own hand or my secretary's, new sheets among old ones. Orlov's voice cooled further. Are you accusing one of His Highness's servants of some mischief? He asked. I accuse no one, Mikhail said. I merely state what I observed. When I examined the papers in private, I found signatures that resembled those of respected men, yet they were not identical to the true signatures I keep on file in my records, letters written to my father years ago, before such questions arose. He paused. I removed those sheets, he continued. They are in my keeping now. I did not wish to lay them before your Highness until I had compared them thoroughly. If they are indeed forged, they represent not concern but treachery. The room grew very quiet. Forged? The Grand Duke repeated. Or clumsily copied, Mikhail said. I will not claim a crime until the letters are examined by someone trained in such matters. But I know enough of ink and line to see when a hand imitates instead of remembers. And these supposed forged letters, Orlov said, striving for lightness, where are they now? In a safe place, Mikhail answered. They will be given to the proper office when this evening is done, along with the account of how they were placed in my study on the very day we gather to speak of loyalty. Anya could almost hear the Grand Duke's mind measuring those words. Count Orlov, he said slowly, you have pressed often at council for stricter measures against disloyalty. You have spoken of hidden enemies, of patterns only you seem to see. Yet now, when asked for proof, you produce none. Instead, forged letters appear in a loyal man's house under the Emperor's seal. Your Highness, Orlov said quickly, I assure you I know nothing of any forgery. If some overzealous friend has attempted to assist our cause with clumsy tools, I am the first to condemn him. But do not mistake his foolishness for my intent. Perhaps, the Grand Duke said, perhaps not. Either way, this matter must be examined. Not here, not tonight, but soon and quietly. His voice shifted, gaining the steel that lay beneath the courtesy. Until then, he continued, I advise you, Count Orlov, to be very careful with your words. The Emperor does not look kindly on any attempt to deceive him, even in the name of protecting his throne. Orlov murmured something about sorrow and misunderstanding. His tone was smooth, but Anya heard the thin crack in it. The Grand Duke turned back to Mikhail. As for you, Duke Volkov, he said, I thank you for your discretion. You could have made a spectacle of this. Instead, you bring me proof quietly. That is the kind of loyalty my cousin values. I serve at his pleasure, Mikhail replied. If there are rotten boards beneath our feet, I prefer he know it before the floor gives way. A murmur of agreement moved through the room. The conversation shifted after that. The Grand Duke steered it toward less dangerous waters. The dangerous papers, real and false, remained unshown to most of those present. Only a handful understood what had just been averted. From the corridor, Anya stepped back. Her legs trembled with relief. It is done, she thought. Not finished, but turned. They will not speak from his desk tonight. The rest of the evening felt strangely lighter. The music resumed in the main salon. Some guests danced, though it was not a ball. Others played cards. Laughter returned, a little forced at first, then more natural. Not everyone was pleased. As Anya passed with a tray near the fireplace, Duchess Morozova's voice drifted toward her. "Have you heard," the Duchess said to her companion, "that our host keeps a rescued waif upstairs? A little bird he picked from the snow." Anya froze. "I hear all sorts of tales," the younger lady replied. "Most of them foolish." "This one is not," the Duchess said. "I saw her myself. A slip of a girl with eyes too wide for her own good. He watches her in the halls. It is unusual." "And what of it?" the younger woman asked. "If he saved a servant from the cold, shall we condemn him?" Duchess Morozova's smile cooled. "We do not condemn acts of charity," she said. "We merely note when they become distractions. A man in his position should mind which stories follow him into court." Her gaze slid over the rim of her cup and landed on Anya. She let it rest there, deliberate. "Ah," she said softly. "There, you see? Our little bird." Anya's face burned. For a moment she considered turning away. Then Irina's words came back. "Do not challenge, do not cringe." She stepped closer, holding the tray steady. "Wine, Your Grace?" she asked, her voice even. The Duchess tilted her head. "Tell me, girl," she said, ignoring the tray. "Where did His Grace find you? On which doorstep did you faint that he might carry you across his own?" Anya felt several nearby pairs of eyes turn toward them. The room felt too hot. She chose her words carefully. "On a bench in the square, Your Grace," she said. "I was cold, he was kind." A ripple moved through the group. Some smiled faintly. One older lady nodded as if approving such plain speech. "Kind," the Duchess repeated. "Yes, our host has that reputation. It is one of his many virtues." Her tone made the word sound like a criticism. Mikhail's voice cut across from behind Anya before she could reply. "Duchess," he said, "if you wish to know where I spend my evenings, you need only ask me." The girl was freezing. "I had a spare coat. That is the whole of the story." Anya turned, startled. He stood only a few steps away, his expression controlled but his eyes firm. He took the tray gently from her hands and handed it to another servant. "You have served enough in this room for the moment," he told Anya quietly. "See if the staff needs help in the smaller parlor." "Yes, Your Grace," she said. She moved away, her heart pounding. As she left, she heard him say to the Duchess in a tone polite but edged, "If charity is to be counted as indiscretion, then I gladly accept the charge." The evening finally drew to a close. Carriages were called. Cloaks returned. Guests offered thanks and praise. The Grand Duke clasped Mikhail's arm briefly. "We will speak again soon," he said, "regarding both loyalty and forgery." "I stand ready," Mikhail replied. Orloff bowed with perfect courtesy, his smile fixed, his eyes cool. "You must forgive any confusion my concern has caused," he said. "We all wish the same end." "I believe we do not," Mikhail answered calmly, "but that will be made clear in time." When the last guest had gone, the house exhaled. Servants moved through the rooms, clearing plates, collecting glasses, snuffing candles. The chandeliers dimmed one by one. Anya helped stack cups in the sideboard until Irina waved her away. "Go rest," the housekeeper said. "You look ready to fall over. Tomorrow we will clean what you left tonight." Anya obeyed, though rest was far from her mind. Her feet carried her, almost without her choosing, toward the small sitting room near the back stair where she had once stood shivering in a borrowed nightdress. The fire there burned low now, casting a softer light. She stepped inside and stopped. Mikhail stood by the window, his hands behind his back. He had removed his coat, his shirt sleeves rolled neatly to the wrist. He looked tired in a way she had not seen before, as if the evening had pressed more on his spirit than on his body. He turned at the sound of her footstep. "Forgive me," she said quickly. "I did not know this room was in use." "I can go. Stay," he said. "For once I would like someone to come into a room without needing anything from me." She hesitated, then moved closer to the fire, leaving space between them. "The evening is done," he said, "at least on the surface. The rest will play out in offices and letters, far from this house." "Will they punish him?" she asked. "Count Orlov?" "In some way, yes," he replied. "Perhaps not with chains. Men like him rarely feel those. But his influence will shrink. His words will be weighed with more suspicion. The Grand Duke is no fool. He saw enough tonight to know who tried to pull the strings." "And the others?" she asked. "The names they meant to smear?" "Safe, for now," he said. "Their letters will speak for them instead of against them, and they will never know how close their honor came to being stained in this room." She held her hands out to the fire. "It seems so simple when you say it like that," she murmured. "But tonight, it felt as if every step could crack the floor." He gave a soft, brief laugh. "You described my years at court in one sentence," he said. She glanced at him. "Are you angry with me?" she asked, the question surprising even herself. He frowned. "Why would I be angry?" he said. "Because I brought this to you," she said. "If I had not listened that night, if I had not spoken, maybe their plan would have failed on its own. Or maybe," she trailed off, realizing how foolish it sounded. "Or maybe I would have stood in that room tonight," he said, "reading out forged accusations with all the weight of my name and the imperial crest behind me. Men who have done nothing but serve would wake tomorrow under a cloud of doubt. Orlov's circle would grow stronger. The Emperor would be nudged toward mistrust of the wrong men, and I would never know how I had been used." He shook his head. "No," he added. "If there is anger, it is not for you. It is for men who take loyalty and twist it like a rope." She studied his face in the shifting light. "You carry so much," she said softly. "For one person. Do you think I do it alone?" he asked. "I have Nicolia, Irina, others I trust. And now," he hesitated, "now I had you." Her heart stumbled over that simple phrase. "I only watched," she said, "carried trays, opened doors. You saw what no one else saw," he said, "and you spoke when silence would have been safer for you. That is not nothing, Anya." Her name in his mouth sounded different tonight, less formal, more known. She looked down, suddenly shy. "The Duchess does not agree," she said, trying to lighten the moment. "She thinks I am a distraction. She is used to having the last word on what distracts me," he replied dryly. "I have never given it to her, but that does not stop her from reaching." "She looked at me as if I had taken something from her," Anya said. "You took nothing," he said. "There was nothing hers to take." His voice had changed again, softened. She risked a glance at him. "You have been kind to me," she said. "More than any man of your rank needed to be. You could have left me on that bench. You could have sent me away after the first whispers. You could have ignored this whole tangle and let others drown in it." He did not answer at once. His gaze drifted to the window, where faint frost traced the edges of the glass. "When I lost my wife," he said quietly, "I told myself that the safest way to live was to keep the world at arm's length, to see duties, not people, papers, not faces." He smiled, but it was a tired, sad smile. "It works," he went on, "for a time. The days fill. The nights pass. No one gets close enough to be taken away." She held her breath. "And then?" she asked. "And then," he said, "one evening I step out of my sleigh and find a girl half frozen on a bench, clutching life like a stubborn thing. And I hear her mutter that she did not tell, that someone would find her. And I realize that if I walk away, I will hear that voice every night in my sleep." He looked at her fully now. "You have troubled my peace, Anya Petrova," he said, such as it was. "I am sorry," she whispered, though she was not sure for what. "Do not be," he said. "Peace is overrated." Something like a smile tugged at her mouth. "Do you regret bringing me here?" she asked. He shook his head once firmly. "No," he said, "not for a moment. Even if Orlov's schemes had never touched you, I would not regret it. The house has been quieter around you. Less empty. She felt heat rise in her cheeks. I only scrub floors and carry bread, she said. How you do more than that, he replied. You move through these rooms as if they matter. You listen in ways that are not only for gossip. You look at things as if they are worth seeing. Do you know how rare that is in these halls? She could not answer. He took a step closer, then another, until the distance between them was not so large. He did not touch her. His hands remained at his sides, but his voice dropped. I told myself, he said slowly, that what I felt when I saw you in the square was only duty, that what I felt when I heard your story was only pity, that what I felt when you stood in my study and told me of Orloff was only respect. He paused. I am not certain that is all it is anymore, he finished. Anya's heart beat so hard she thought he must hear it. I do not know what to say, she murmured. You need not say anything, he said quickly. Not tonight. You have had enough weight on your shoulders. I should not add more. He turned his head slightly as if to break the intensity of the moment. I only wished you to know, he went on, that whatever others in this city may say about you, in this house you are not a burden. You are not a complication. You are valued. The word seemed too small and too large at once. Tears pricked at her eyes. She blinked them away. When I left my village, she said quietly, I thought I would spend my life invisible. A pair of hands, a back that bends. I did not think anyone would ever say I was valued. Then they were fools, he said. She laughed softly, the sound shaky. I do not know what happens next, she admitted. With Orloff, with you, with me. The world outside this room still feels big and sharp. So does mine, he said. But tonight at least, we have earned a little rest from it. He looked at the chair by the fire. Sit, he said, just for a moment. No trays, no orders, no dukes, no conspirators, just warmth. She hesitated, then sat. The fire's glow wrapped around her. After a heartbeat, he sat in the other chair, leaving proper space between them. They stayed like that in companionable silence, the crackle of the logs and the occasional muffled sound from distant corridors filling the room. The storm outside could rage as it liked. For the first time in many days, Anya's shoulders loosened. She glanced sideways at him. Thank you, she said, not only for the chair or the fire or the night, but for the path that had led from a bench in the snow to this quiet corner. He met her gaze and inclined his head, as if accepting a gift. For the first time in a very long while, he said, I am glad that winter forced my sleigh to slow. Winter did not end all at once. It loosened its grip slowly, as if it did not quite trust spring to manage on its own. The snow in the streets turned thin and grey along the edges. Icicles shrank drip by drip from the eaves. The river still wore its hard white coat, but cracks began to appear near the banks. Inside the Volkov house, life also shifted in small ways. Anya felt it first in the kitchen, where the cook began to talk of fresh herbs instead of pickled ones. Then in the laundry, where the great furs were cleaned and brushed before being stored away. Then in the front hall, where wet footprints became more water than snow. More letters came. They arrived with seals and important hands. Some bore the imperial crest, others carried the marks of ministers, council members, men whose names Anya now knew, but still did not dare to say aloud unless asked. She saw them in passing only. It was not her place to break seals. Still, every time a letter arrived, she felt the old flutter of fear. One afternoon, as she swept the back corridor, she overheard Nikolai and Mikhail speaking in low voices near the study. The commission has finished comparing the letters, Nikolai said. Their experts agree the signatures are copied. The phrasing is too smooth. They call it coordinated misrepresentation. A polite name for dishonor, Mikhail said. They commend you, Nikolai added, in their careful language. They say your discretion prevented a misstep at the highest level. And Orloff? Mikhail asked. Summoned often, answered often, smiles always, Nikolai replied. But his circle shrinks. One of his closest associates has been asked to retire to his estate. Another has been given a post very far from the capital. A third has suddenly discovered devotion to his sick mother in the countryside. And Orloff himself? Mikhail pressed. Not ruined, Nikolai said. Men like him do not fall all at once, but he is watched. His suggestions do not carry as they did. When he speaks of danger now, others hear ambition instead of concern. There was a brief silence. "It will do," Mikhail said finally. "I did not seek his destruction, only that his games not drag the Empire into them." "And the girl who kept that from happening?" Nikolai asked. Mikhail did not answer at once. When he did, his voice was softer. "She has done more than I could repay with any coin," he said, "though she does not think so." Anya stepped away quietly before they could notice her near the door. Her cheeks were warm. She had not done any of it for praise. She had done it because she could not live with herself if she did not. Still, hearing her name carried like that in a room full of books and power made her feel strangely tall for a moment. Her days filled with new tasks as winter thinned. Irina, true to her promise, did not let her hands grow idle. But she also remembered something else. "You mentioned once that you could barely read," the housekeeper said one evening, finding Anya in the linen room. "That will not do any more. Not for a girl whose name passes with letters upstairs." "I can read a bit," Anya protested. "Signs, some words." "Not enough," Irina replied. "You will come to the small office after supper. Nikolai has agreed to help. He enjoys pretending to be a teacher." Thus began a new habit. Most nights, when the house quieted, Anya sat at a small desk near the back of the house with a worn primer before her. Nikolai corrected her letters patiently. "That is not an M. That is an injured N," he said once, tapping the crooked line. She laughed and tried again. Mikhail passed the open door more than once. Sometimes he simply glanced in and moved on. Sometimes he paused. "How goes the war with the alphabet?" he asked one night. "I think I have taken 2 villages," Anya replied, grinning. "But the capital still stands." "Do not worry," Nikolai said. "She will conquer it. She has more stubbornness than half the council." "I do not doubt it," Mikhail said. He stepped inside, looked over her shoulder at the page. "Read this," he said, pointing at a line. She frowned, sounding it out. "Loyalty is not proved by words spoken when others listen," she read slowly, "but by choices made when no one sees." "That is too long for a practice sentence," she protested. "It seemed fitting," he said. She looked up at him. "Do you copy your own thoughts when you prepare lessons?" she asked. "Sometimes," he admitted. "It spares me the trouble of finding other men's wisdom." The more she read, the more the house opened to her. Old ledgers became stories. Names in account lists became people who had supplied the Volkov household for years. Petitions, once just sheets of ink, now told of widows needing repairs, schools needing roofs, men asking for work. She began, shyly at first, to help Irina read the letters that came from the poorer districts, asking for leftover food or unused clothing. "We can spare more," she said once, after reading a request from a widow with 5 children. "They ask for 1 sack of flour. We have 3 we did not use this month." Irina watched her. "You are sure it will not empty our own shelves?" she asked. "I counted," Anya replied. "Twice. If the next delivery is on time, we will manage." Irina nodded. "Then mark it," she said. "Write yes in the corner. I will know what it means." Anya did, her letters a little shaky but legible. "You are making decisions now," Irina remarked. "Be careful. That is how it begins." "How what begins?" Anya asked. "A life that is not entirely lived bending to other people's choices," Irina said. The thought stayed with her. Still, for all the warmth growing in the house, coldness remained outside. Not weather now, people. Whispers did not vanish when the forgery scandal softened. They merely changed shape. Ladies who had always lifted their noses a little higher when they passed a servant now lifted them even more when that servant was Anya. In the market, where she sometimes went with another maid to buy fresh vegetables, she heard bits of talk. "They say the Duke keeps a peasant in his house, took her in from the street." A soft heart is admirable. A soft head is not. Perhaps he is lonely. Perhaps he is foolish. Perhaps both. Perhaps she will be sent away now that the excitement is over. She pretended not to hear. One morning, as she arranged fresh flowers in a vase for the front hall, she heard Duchess Morozova's name spoken in the servants' corner. "They say she has been invited to tea with His Grace," the younger maid Katya whispered. "Private tea. Only the 2 of them." "Who told you that?" the cook asked skeptically. "A footman who carries messages," Katya replied. "He said a note went out with her name on it." "Notes go out every day," the cook said. Do not make a marriage from an invitation. Still the words stung. Anya told herself she did not care. Mikhail was a duke. He spoke often with noblewomen. He had a past she could not touch, a future she did not dare imagine. If he married, it would be to someone like Duchess Morozova. That was the path the world understood. She reminded herself of this as she scrubbed pots, folded linen, sounded out words in the primer. Even so, a hollow feeling settled in her chest, as if some part of her had expected something madder than sense. She did not see Mikhail for 2 days. He left early for a meeting at the palace and returned late, when she was already in her room. On the 3rd morning, she was helping Irina check the list of supplies when Nikolai entered the kitchen. His Grace will be away tomorrow, he said. Summoned to the palace again, a private audience this time. He will return the following day. Another, Irina muttered. They will work him to dust and then complain when he does not produce miracles. Nikolai's eyes flicked to Anya, then away. He knows when to hold his ground, he said. Anya bent her head over the list. Her hand shook faintly as she wrote down, soap, 6 bars. A private audience. She wondered what it was for. Orlov, perhaps, or other matters of state. It had nothing to do with her, it could not. That night, sleep came late. She lay awake, listening to the house. It creaked differently when Mikhail was gone. Or perhaps that was just her imagination. What am I doing, she thought, staring at the ceiling crack. Hoping for what? For a life in rooms where I do not belong? For a man whose world was built before I was born? She turned onto her side. When he returns, she told herself, I will be ready. Ready to go if he wishes it. Ready to thank him for everything and find some quiet place far from here where gossip cannot reach him. The thought hurt, but it felt like something she could control. Mikhail left the next morning before dawn. Anya saw the sleigh depart from an upstairs window as she shook out a curtain. The horse's breath steamed in the cold air. His figure, wrapped in a dark coat, was only a shape against the pale light. Do your work, she told herself. Do not wait at windows like a foolish child. She obeyed. The day passed, ordinary on the surface. Bread baked, floors swept, letters sorted. No new seals arrived. The house seemed to hold its breath. He did not return that night. By the 2nd evening, everyone was pretending not to look toward the door at every sound. Imperial business, the cook said, stirring a pot. One does not rush back from that. Unless the palace sends you away, Katya muttered. My cousin says men come back from there with faces like stone, or they do not come back at all. Irina snapped her towel. Your cousin talks too much, she said. Slice those onions before I send you to the palace yourself. Anya washed dishes until her fingers were wrinkled. Her thoughts spun. What if he returns with an announcement, she thought. A noble bride. A grand match. Invitations written in careful ink. What will I do then? By the time she climbed the stairs to her small room, she had made another decision. If such an announcement came, she would ask to leave before the wedding. Not in anger, not in shame. Simply because she did not know how to stand in the halls and watch a life form that she had once foolishly let herself imagine. She fell asleep at last, with that resolve curled around her like a second blanket. The next morning, she woke to the sound of carriage wheels in the courtyard. Her heart leapt and then scolded itself. She dressed quickly and went down to the kitchen. The room was already buzzing. He is back, the cook said, setting a pan onto the stove. And with a companion. Some official from the palace. You can tell by the way he wears his nose. In the front parlour, Irina added. No one is to disturb them until they call. That means none of your peeking, Katya. I have no wish to see men talk about taxes, Katya protested. Anya kept her eyes on the bread she was slicing. Her hands moved carefully. An official from the palace. So soon after the audience. Perhaps it was nothing. Perhaps it was everything. Hours seemed to pass before Irina appeared at the kitchen door. Anya, she said, His Grace asks for you in the small sitting room. Now. The knife paused mid-slice. Me? Anya said. Why? Irina's expression was unusually gentle. If I knew everything a duke thinks, I would be the most powerful woman in Russia, she said. I only know he asked for you. Wipe your hands, straighten your hair, do not keep him waiting. Anya obeyed, her heart pounding. She washed her hands, smoothed her dress, tucked a stray strand of hair back. The walk to the small sitting room felt longer than it was. At the door she stopped. drew in one breath, and knocked. "Come in," Mikhail's voice said. She opened the door. He stood by the fire as he had that night after the reception. Today he wore no coat, only a dark waistcoat and shirt, the top button undone. The lines of tiredness were still faintly there, but there was something else in his eyes now, something bright. On the small table near the window lay a folded piece of parchment with a ribbon and a broken wax seal. Even from the door, Anya recognized the imperial crest. "Your Grace," she said, dipping in a quick curtsy. "Anya," he replied. He watched her for a moment as if measuring her mood. "How is the kitchen surviving without me?" he asked lightly. "They complain about onions and gossip," she said. "So, as usual," he smiled. "Good," he said. "The world has not turned completely upside down while I was gone." She glanced at the parchment. "You had a private audience," she said. "With His Imperial Highness?" "With His Imperial Highness's cousin, yes," he replied. "The same Grand Duke who nearly had forged papers presented to him in my house." She folded her hands tightly to keep them from shaking. "And was it about the letters?" she asked. "About Orlov?" "In part," he said. "They wished to hear my account once more, to ask if I had seen any further signs of similar schemes, to assure me that the matter would be contained." "And you believe them?" she asked. "I believe they understand now what kind of fire they almost set to their own roof," he said. "Men can be slow, but pain teaches quickly." He paused. "But that was not the only purpose of the audience," he added. Her mouth went dry. "Not the only purpose," she repeated. "No," he said. He moved toward the table and picked up the parchment. "Tell me something, Anya," he said. "When you think of your future, what do you see?" She blinked. "I do not understand," she said. "I am a servant. I see work. Perhaps if I save a small room somewhere, enough bread, warmth in winter, those would be blessings." "Nothing more?" he asked. She hesitated. "What more would be sensible to wish for?" she said quietly. He looked down at the parchment, then back at her. "Do you wish to leave this house?" he asked. The question hit harder than she expected. "Yes," she said before she could stop herself. His eyes flickered. "I see," he said softly. She took a breath. "I mean," she hurried on, "I wish to leave before I become a burden, before your life changes, before my presence causes you more trouble than it already has." "You think your presence causes me trouble?" he asked. "People talk," she said. "Duchesses, servants, men at market. They say you keep a stray under your roof. They say you will marry a great lady. They say your kindness will be your undoing." "And what do you say?" he asked. She lifted her chin. "I say you have given me more than I deserved," she replied. "You owe me nothing. When your path asks you to step where I cannot follow, I will not cling to your coat." He watched her, something like pain moving behind his eyes. "You plan to walk away," he said slowly, "to spare me scandal." "Yes," she whispered. "And does that plan make you happy?" he asked. She looked at the floor. "Happiness is not for the likes of me," she said. "Peace is enough." He was silent for a long moment. Then he crossed the small distance between them, the parchment still in his hand. "Listen to me," he said quietly, "very carefully, because I have just crossed a line from which there is no easy return, and I will not have done it for nothing." She forced herself to look up. "The Grand Duke asked me a question yesterday," Mikhail said. "He asked if I had considered remarrying." Her heart stumbled. "And what did you answer?" she managed. "I told him that until recently I had not," he said, "that I had wrapped my grief around me like a cloak and decided it would serve instead of companionship." He gave a small, rueful smile. "He did not seem surprised," Mikhail went on. "He said men like me often mistake stubbornness for virtue." She said nothing. Her pulse was a drum in her ears. "Then," Mikhail continued, "he asked if that had changed, if there was someone I wished to bring before the court's notice, someone who might not fit all of society's expectations." Anya could not breathe. "Why would he ask that?" she whispered. "Because he is not blind," Mikhail said, "and because he listens to more than just forged letters. There are other whispers in this city, Anya, not all of them poisonous. He has heard some of them." He opened the parchment. "This," he said, "is the result of that conversation." He held it out to her. Her hands shook as she took it. She could barely see the letters at first. They blurred. She blinked until they steadied. By special dispensation of His Imperial Majesty, the bearer of this letter, Duke Mikhail Petrovich Volkov, is granted permission to unite himself in lawful marriage with a woman of common birth, provided that her conduct and loyalty be judged fitting by his household, and that no impediment of law or blood stand between them. Further, said woman may, upon marriage, be received under the protection of the family name, and afforded such courtesies as the Duke sees proper within his house and lands. Below the neat script, the imperial crest shone, impressed deeply in wax. She stared, unable to make sense of it. I do not understand, she whispered. Why are you showing this to me? Because it concerns you, he said. She looked up, eyes wide. Me, she said. No, it cannot. There are thousands of women of common birth, better than I, more worthy, more skilled. You cannot mean— I can, he said quietly, and I do. She took a step back, as if the room had tilted. No, she said, shaking her head, you cannot. Your Grace, think, your family, your name, people will laugh. They will say you lost your mind in the snow with me. Let them laugh, he said. I am tired of measuring my steps by the mouths of others. He set the parchment aside and reached out, but did not quite touch her. Anya Petrova, he said, from the night I found you on that bench, you have unsettled every careful wall I built around my life. You have brought worry, yes. But you have also brought honesty, warmth, a sense that these rooms are more than just a stage for other people's ambitions. He drew a breath. I find myself listening for your footstep in the hall, he went on, looking for your face at the table, trusting your gaze more than all the flattery of the noblemen who crowd my study. When danger came to this house, you did not run from it. You walked toward it, to warn me. Not because you hoped for reward, but because it was right. He took another step closer. I cannot imagine this house without you now, he said. Not as a servant who passes through its rooms, but as someone who belongs in its heart. Her throat closed. Belongs, she repeated. Yes, he said, and I am selfish enough to want that belonging tied to me, not just to these walls. He bent his head slightly, as if he were suddenly the one unsure. I am asking you, he said, to make another mad choice with me. I am asking you to stay, not as my charity, not as my servant, as my wife. The word hung in the air, unreal. Anya's fingers tightened around the edge of her apron. Your wife, she whispered. Yes, he said. You do not know what you ask, she said, her voice brittle. I am a peasant. I trip over long words. I use the wrong spoon. Your guests will stare. Your relatives will write letters. Duchess Morozova will grow fangs. He almost laughed at that. Perhaps she already has them, he said. If so, they will find no purchase on us. She shook her head again. You could marry a woman who understands this world, she said, who has danced in these halls since she could walk, who knows how to answer every barbed question with a smile. You could have ease. I have had years of ease, he replied. It did not make me happier, it did not make me better. And those women you speak of, some are kind, some less so. But none of them sat in a cold yard listening to men plot, then chose to risk everything to stop them. He lifted his hand, hesitated, then finally let it rest lightly over hers. Do you care for me? He asked very simply. She stared at their joined hands. Yes, she said. More than is wise, more than I ever meant to. That is why I thought I must go. Then stay, he said. Let the foolish world talk. Let them call me mad. I would rather be mad and honest than sane and empty. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You will regret it, she whispered, though her heart was already running ahead of the words, reaching toward the life he held out. Then I will regret it with you, he said softly, and I doubt I will. She gave a small, broken laugh. You speak as if it is simple, she said. It is not simple, he replied. It will never be simple. There will be whispers, looks, subtle cuts at dinners. Some doors may close, others may open, but in this house you will be mine and I will be yours. That at least will be clear. He waited, his eyes searching hers, not pressing now, only offering. She thought of the bench in the square, of the moment she had decided she no longer cared whether she woke. She thought of his coat around her, his voice in her ear, his steady presence when fear had nearly drowned her. She thought of the laugh in his eyes when she misread a word, the quiet patience when he explained a document, the way he had defended her in the salon with a few sharp, clean sentences. She thought of a life in some dark corner room in another house, washing dishes for men who would never know her name. And she thought of this mad, impossible path instead. "I do not know how to be a duchess," she said at last. His hand tightened on hers. "I am not asking you to be a duchess," he said. "I am asking you to be my wife. The rest we will learn together." Her heart made its choice before her mind could catch up. "Yes," she whispered. He leaned closer. "Yes," he repeated, as if he needed to hear it again. "Yes," she said more strongly now. "I will stay. I will marry you. If you are stubborn enough to want me, I am foolish enough to say yes." Something broke in his face then, something hard that had been there for years. His eyes warmed, the lines at their corners softening. "Thank you," he said, with a gravity that made the words heavy. "You have just made the bravest decision of both our lives." He lifted her hand and very gently brought it to his lips. His kiss was light, respectful, but it sent heat rushing up her arm. "May I?" he asked, his voice lower now, his gaze dipped to her mouth. She could not find the words, so she nodded. He bent and kissed her, slowly, carefully, as if he were afraid she might vanish if he held her too tightly. She did not vanish. The room did for a moment. There was only the steadiness of his hands, the warmth of his breath, the feeling of years of cold cracking somewhere deep inside her. When they parted, both were breathing a little faster. "Well," he said softly, an unsteady smile tugging at his mouth. "That settles that." She laughed through her tears. "What will Irina say?" she asked. "She will say I should have done it weeks ago," he replied. He was not wrong. Irina took the news with only a brief widening of her eyes. Then she nodded, as if the world had finally remembered its proper shape. "I always said you brought trouble into this house," she told Anya, her voice suspiciously thick. "It seems you brought an entire marriage." Nikolai bowed in an exaggerated manner when he heard. "Your Grace," he said to Anya, testing the words with a grin, "or soon to be, I look forward to taking orders from you. I am told you are merciless with flower accounts." Anya blushed so deeply she thought she might never cool. "Do not call me that yet," she begged. "My tongue trips over the sound." "It will learn," Nikolai said. The city, of course, had its opinions. Some nobles graciously accepted the announcement when it arrived on stiff paper, signed in Mikhail's steady hand. They spoke of love conquering all with smiles that did not entirely reach their eyes. Others sniffed and spoke of declining standards, of dangerous precedents, of sentimentality gone too far. Duchess Morozova sent a note of chilly congratulations, written in flawless script. She did not attend the wedding. Count Orlov was not invited. The ceremony took place in the small chapel attached to the Volkov estate on the edge of the city. It was not large, but the stone was old and the candles many. A winter's worth of saved light seemed to gather there. Anya stood at the entrance on the morning of the wedding, her hands trembling only slightly in the folds of her simple dress. It was not heavy with jewels. It did not glitter. It was soft, well made, and fit her as if it had been sewn to her bones. Irina had laced it herself, muttering about shoulders and posture. "You look like yourself," Irina said at last, stepping back. "That is what matters." "Is that enough?" Anya asked. "For him, yes," Irina replied. "For anyone else, it may never be. Why should we care?" Nikolai appeared unexpectedly solemn in a dark coat. "Everyone is seated," he said. "The Grand Duke's representative is in the front pew. He looks as if he would rather face a firing squad than another speech. But I assure you there will be no gunpowder here, only vows." Anya swallowed. "Is he truly here?" she whispered. "The same man who held that audience with his grace?" "Yes," Nikolai said. "I wanted to see with his own eyes what came of the permission he signed. He told me so. He also said," he added, lowering his voice, "if she walks down that aisle with her head high, I will consider this one of my better decisions." Anya's head spun. "I do not know how high my head will be," she said. "But I will walk." "Good enough," Nikolai replied. The chapel was not crowded. Some of Mikhail's relatives sat stiffly, their expressions carefully polite. A few loyal friends filled another row, men who had worked with him quietly for years. The staff lined the sides, dressed in their best, faces bright. The air hummed with whispers. "Is that her? So young. She looks ordinary." Ordinary women do not have dukes changing laws for them. Mikhail stood at the front near the small altar, waiting. He wore his formal coat, but there was a softness at the corners of his mouth that did not appear in any court painting. When Anya stepped into the aisle and their eyes met, the murmurs faded in her ears. Every step felt both heavy and light. She did not float. She walked. Her shoes touched the stone. The hem of her dress brushed the floor. Irina's words echoed in her mind. "You look like yourself." She reached him. The priest's words washed over them, vows, promises, questions that began with "do you" and "will you" and "until death." Anya's voice shook on the first "I do," then steadied on the second. Mikhail's voice did not shake at all, but his hand trembled against hers once. When it was done, when the priest declared what the law now considered true, the Grand Duke's representative stepped forward. "In the name of His Imperial Majesty," he said, "I acknowledge this union. May it bring more stability to this house than certain other unions nearly took from it." There was a ripple of restrained laughter. Mikhail leaned close. "I believe that was his way of blessing us," he murmured. "I will take it," Anya smiled. He turned to her fully, and in front of everyone in that small old chapel he kissed her. It was not as careful as the first kiss in the sitting room. It was still respectful, but there was a firmer promise in it now, a public one. Later the household gathered in the dining hall. The celebration was not wild. There were no endless courses, no fountains of wine. There was good food, music from a small group of musicians, a scattering of toasts. Irina raised a glass. "To the girl who turned our house upside down," she said, "may she never put it back the way it was." Laughter went up. Nikolai lifted his. "To His Grace," he added, "who finally learned that some risks are worth taking." More laughter. Anya blushed, but her heart overflowed. When the guests had gone and the musicians packed away their instruments, when the candles burned low and the last crumbs were swept from the table, Mikhail led her back to the small sitting room where so much had shifted. The fire burned there, as always. He closed the door gently behind them. "Well, Duchess," he said softly, testing the title on his tongue. She wrinkled her nose. "It still sounds strange," she confessed. "Give it time," he said. "It will learn you." She smiled. "Do you remember," she asked, "what you said to me in the square, the first words I heard?" "I said many foolish things in my life," he replied. "Remind me which one saved you." "You said, 'You're coming with me,'" she said. "You did not ask, you decided." He nodded slowly. "I did," he said. "I had no idea then what it would mean." She stepped closer, laying her hand lightly on his chest. "I think," she said, "this time it is my turn." His brows lifted. "Oh?" he said. "And what do you say now?" She met his gaze steadily, her eyes bright. "I am staying with you," she said, "whatever comes, whatever they say. This house, this life, this madness. I choose it." Something in his face relaxed completely then, as if some last thread of doubt had loosened. "Then we are agreed," he answered, his voice low and warm. "We walk together now. No benches, no sleighs, just us." He drew her into his arms. She went willingly, feeling the steady beat of his heart under her ear. Outside, the last of the snow clung stubbornly to the shaded corners of the city. It would melt, as all winters eventually did. New cold seasons would come, with their own fears and storms. But in this house, in this quiet room, warmth had found a place that would not so easily be taken from it. Anya closed her eyes, breathed in the scent of wood smoke and wool and the man who had changed her life, and understood, with a clarity that needed no letters or seals, that the girl who had once waited to die on a lonely bench now had a home, a name, and a love that would walk beside her for all the days still to come. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.